So, welcome back to our second day of our extraordinary event for the 80th anniversary of the UN. Welcome back. Those ones who are following us online, we are together. We are still connected with you. So, as we mark the 80th anniversary of the UN, we return to the core idea, youth in action for sustaining peace. Today's roundtables will keep focusing on cities, communities, care, and the power of youth in action. These areas shape how people live, work, and support one another, which makes them essential for lasting peace. Our panel brings together experts from different backgrounds who each bring practical insight and real experience. Their perspectives will help us see how local leadership, community care, and youth engagement can drive global stability. Please join us in welcoming our moderator, Melissa Major from New Humanity International NGO of the Focola Movement. You are most welcome, Melissa.
Thank you again, and welcome all. This is our second international connection with cities all around the world. Just one quick check. Can you hear me well? Because I knew yesterday I was speaking a little bit low. I'm less nervous today, so you can see it. So one quick question. We connected yesterday with two cities that were in two different continents. Which were those continents? So here are saying Latin America and Africa, okay? So yes, we were connected yesterday with Africa and America. Some of us call it Latin America or South America because in fact we are in South America, but we are all a same continent. Please remember that. And another test of memory. You remember yesterday we did a timeout for peace. Okay, so after the encounter with these new three cities of today, I'm going to invite you to do it again, just to connect all together and care for each other. Today, before starting, I wanted to remember that time out of peace because we're going to connect with cities that are experiencing moments of uncertainty, fear, desolation, due to ongoing conflicts, but also because of natural disasters. So we want to embrace them and remember that these situations make us feel deeply aware of our fragility as humanity. And at the same time, that hope and fraternity and, of course, love are still part of our narrative and our actions towards all together. Does it make sense? Okay, so our journey continues today as we explore how communities are learning to live sustainability through care, of course, collaboration, and belonging. Belonging is a very important word. So we want to join people from the Middle East, Asia, and Europe that can explain how for them it works to work with architecture, art, and intercultural dialogue, and also civic participation to renew relationships and to give new soul to their cities. So let's travel together now and welcome the first city, Bethlehem. For this connection, first we're going to see a video to watch it, and then this video will present an inspiring initiative that the name is Together We Care. that has been implemented in several schools in the city, and it has completed its first year this year. So let's watch the video and then I'll introduce more.
Greetings to everyone from Bethlehem. We are right here in the square. Behind us is the Basilica de Nativity. In front of us is the City Hall, the municipality of Bethlehem. We send special greetings to all of you gathered in Nairobi for the convention Cities, Communities Care, Youth in Action for Sustaining Peace. And also special greetings to all of you gathered that are following this event online. My name is Marco De Salvo. I serve as president of a New Humanity NGO that is promoting this event. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to be there in presence with you in Nairobi, but I know that the NGO is quite well represented there. And on behalf of New Humanity, I'd like to thank each one of you for your effort to promote a new vision based on solidarity, inclusion, and hope. I'm here with Rima and Tony, and we'd like to share with you our commitment for peace here in the Holy Land.
مرحبا للجميع. أنا اسمي طوني بلوط من بيت لحم. أعمل موظفاً في بلدية بيت لحم منذ عدة سنوات. تعد بيت لحم رمزاً عالمياً للسلام والمحبة ومنارة للتعايش الإنساني، وتسعى دوماً لترسيخ هذه القيم رغم ما تواجهه من تحديات على جميع الأصعدة، بداية من خلال الفسيفساء التي تشكلها المدينة، وتعطي للعالم رسالة بأن الأخوة هي السبيل الوحيد نحو السلام والأمان، وتشكل نموذجاً للوحدة والتفاهم بين جميع أبنائها. كما أن المدينة وجهة دينية مهمة على المستوى العالمي، كان يزورها قبل بداية الحرب ملايين السياح لتحولها إلى فضاء من الفرح والوحدة تتلاقى فيها ثقافات العالم أجمع. وأيضاً يتم تنفيذ المبادرات والمشاريع وإقامة المؤتمرات الموجهة بشكل خاص لفئة الشباب، وتهدف لإعداد جيل من الشباب يؤمن بالعدالة والاحترام وخلق القادة القادرين على خدمة مجتمعهم ويسعون إلى السلام القائم على الحق. كل ذلك من خلال المدارس والجامعات والمراكز التربوية والمجتمعية التي تظهر بيت لحم مدينة قادرة على البناء رغم التحديات. لكون بيت لحم نافذة فلسطين على العالم وجسراً يربط سكانها بالعالم، فهي تسعى من خلال علاقاتها الدولية مع مدن ودول العالم لأن تؤكد على رسالة السلام التي انطلقت مع ميلاد الطفل يسوع، وأن بيت لحم رغم الجدران والحواجز ونقص الحرية ما زالت تنبض برسالة الأمل وتصر على أن تكون صوتاً للحق. فهي لا تنادي بالسلام كشعار فقط، وإنما واقعاً تعيش من خلال أبنائها الذين يؤمنون بأنه يبدأ من القلب ومن خلال احترام كرامة الإنسان.
منذ فترة طويلة كانت هنالك الرغبة في تقديم مساهمتنا بحيث ما نقوم به يؤثر إيجابياً على المجتمع، وذلك من خلال تعزيز الأنشطة ذات استمرارية. نحن جميعاً ندرك الوضع الذي نجد أنفسنا نعيش فيه، والذي تجد البشرية نفسها فيه اليوم، كم من الصعوبات، كم من الآلام. شعرنا أنه من المهم أن نقدم مساهمتنا حتى يكون للشباب وجهة نظر مختلفة عن تلك التي يرونها كل يوم. هكذا ولد مشروع معاً نحن نتواصل، والهدف منه هو إيقاظ الأمل من جديد وتنمية الإيمان وتعزيز روحانية متجذرة في الإنجيل لدى الأجيال الشابة، لتهيئة نساء ورجال الغد القادرين على أن يكونوا دعاة للمصالحة والحوار والمساعدة في تقوية النسيج الاجتماعي الجريح، تهيئة وتدريب قادة شابة لثقافة جديدة من التعاون والأخوة والمشاركة والمواطنة الفاعلة، ثقافة الاهتمام واللقاء. هنالك جلسات تدريبية وأنشطة بأساليب تفاعلية قادرة على إشراك الشباب وتحفيزهم بلغات تتناسب معهم، مثل المسرح والموسيقى والصور الفوتوغرافية وورش العمل الرياضية. في السنة الأولى عملنا على 3 محاور رئيسية: فهم الذات وتقدير الذات والتنمية الشخصية، التثقيف حول إدارة الصراعات والالتقاء في العمل الجماعي، الحوار بين الأجيال والنظراء. ونريد أن نربط مع كل موضوع من هذه المواضيع أفعال مرتبطة بمكعب السلام، بحيث يكون لكل موضوع يتم تناوله تأثير في تطبيقه من خلال خلق علاقات جديدة. في الحدث الختامي للسنة الأولى قامت الفرق الموسيقية الدولية جين فيردي جين روسو بتنظيم ورش عمل على مدى 3 أيام مع أكثر من 100 شاب، مركزين القيم نفسها التي ميزت التدريب خلال هذه السنة الأولى من خلال الموسيقى والرقص والمسرح. إنه برنامج مدته 3 سنوات، شارك فيه حوالي 500 طالب تتراوح أعمارهم بين 13 و 15 عام. بدأنا ب5 مدارس في منطقة بيت لحم والقدس الشرقية، وقد انضمت هذا العام إلى البرنامج 3 مدارس من حيفا. الفيديو الذي ستشاهدونها الآن يعرض مقتطفات من حفل إطلاق المشروع في أكتوبر 2024 ومن حفل الختام الذي أقيم في أيار 2025، ويتضمن بعض انطباعات الطلاب.
Thank you. What to say after that video? Fraternity. Fraternity is the only path to peace and security, serving as a model of unity and understanding among all its inhabitants. Those were some of the words that they have shared, and for me, they are very, very meaningful. That's what when I watched the video, I wanted to quote those, because it reunited us despite all the difficulties that we're living in our countries. And I think that's the beauty of this experience, because it reminds us that peace begins at the heart. So that's why this project, that Together We Care, focus on these 3 key themes: self-knowledge, personal development, conflict management, and intergenerational dialogue. I think those are very important, knowing ourselves, how can we react, how can we build peace together, being able to be agents of peace. You all said it yesterday. That's very important for all of us. So I want us, as Grima was saying, to get to know more about this project. I know, for example, the experience of Echo for Leaders yesterday, for me is also a very important experience of formation, because education is one of the other cores that keeps building a new narrative, a new way of understanding our ways of living with others. So let's give it the chance to get to know about the project Together We Care.
A 3-year initiative that the Focolare movement in the Holy Land launched on the 25th of October. At the theatre of the Terra Sancta College in Bethlehem, the Together We Connect project, a new ray of hope in light of the challenges facing the region. The project brings together 5 schools in Jerusalem and Bethlehem to build bridges between students, promote common human values, cultivate peace and train young people as leaders for active citizenship. In this context, Tamer Zakak, project coordinator of Together We Connect, says that a drop announces rain. One of the most important topics we will be working on is self-understanding and self-esteem, personal development, peer education, and intergenerational dialogue. We are looking for new leaders for a more aware generation, in small steps like a drop, but we would like to start with something. And we hope that this drop will expand to reach more generations in the future and broaden the vision of the project through these students.
On Thursday, May 8, 350 people filled the auditorium of the Terra Santa College to celebrate the conclusion of the first year of Together We Connect, a project sponsored by the Focolare with the goal of forming young people capable of promoting a culture of fraternity, reconciliation, and dialogue, a culture of encounter. Each school shared some of the activities they had carried out and the impact of the experience they had lived since the beginning of the project. The main topics, self-knowledge and personal development, conflict management, and intergenerational dialogue, were explored through moments of formation, activities, projects, and games.
The first thing we learned was good values: love, humility, forgiveness, and helping each other. Also, we felt our class became one family. Now we understand each other better and help each other more. I also understood how I could be a light for others and realized that Focolare is not a name, but a way of life.
I enjoyed the Together We Connect activity very much. I met many new people. It was good and I found new strength.
I got to know myself more and others too through the Together We Connect project. I'm personally very sensitive, but with this project, it made me love life more.
It was a useful and fun project. For example, the dialogue among generations. When I tried it with my grandmother, I learned things I didn't know before.
Beautiful. It brought us closer to God.
It taught me many things, like how to help one another. We learned how to deal with friends and other people.
The international music groups Gen Verde and Gen Rosso directed 3 days of workshops with more than 100 young people, underlining the same values that characterized this first year through music, dance, and theatrical performances.
Leading separate lives. If we don't heal the wounds, how can we survive?
The final celebration was a mosaic of color, music, and testimonials, proof that together we really connect. Together, we can also be a sign of hope here and now, today.
What if I take your pain and I make it
mine? Shukran, Bethlehem. Now, let's continue this journey with this energy of youth to go through Manila. A fun fact: the Philippines is an archipelago made of 7,641 islands. Did you know that? 7,641 islands. Like, can you imagine how can I go to visit my friend from the island here to the island there? You can imagine also how the difficulties that people face in Asian countries, and now we're speaking about the Philippines, Manila, the capital. Like many places in the world, people face many challenges, like challenges that are related to waste, corruption, but also extreme weather conditions. And this affects people and nature, for sure. Maria Cynthia Funk, she's an architect, and she lives there in Manila and is working with a lot of students and professors from different faculties, so it's very interdisciplinary. And they're working together with local residents to address the effects of waste and climate change. They are focusing on the relationships that we have with ourselves, but with the others. So we can also focus on the relationship with nature with this approach of integral ecology. I don't want to give much away, and let's see for their story they're going to tell us what is their project about.
It began with a question: how do we live with water, not against it? The Styro Pavilion was my first response. But it wasn't mine alone. It was a journey I shared with my students and co-faculty, architects like me. Walking the esteros, listening to the stories, and confronting a painful truth. In our cities, water had become a receptacle for trash. It was no longer a source of life, but a symbol of neglect. We were amazed and deeply moved when we began to understand the origins of this animosity. It wasn't just about waste. It was about the loss of relationship, the broken ties between people and place, between communities and the environment. Somewhere along the way, we stopped seeing water as part of us. So the answer couldn't just be technical. It had to be relational. We needed public spaces where we could rebuild community, spaces that invite us to remember, to reconnect, and to care. This Styro Pavilion became that space. Not a monument, but a living system. A place where bamboo met memory, where architecture listened, and where healing could begin. In Noveleta, the sea told a different story. A coastal town shaped by tides and typhoons, where the challenge was vulnerability, rising waters, flooding, and displacement. We have just begun to understand the situation. People here are poor and in need of support, but the environment has also been mishandled. Corrupt practices have led to sand being quarried from the coast, causing the destruction of coral reefs and the loss of fishing opportunities. Planting mangroves has not started yet, as we are still seeking funds, but these community activities will be strengthened once they are organized and rapports are established. Here, architecture must bend, breathe, and adapt. It can support the creation of spaces that become places, places that build relationships, restore dignity, and reconnect people with their environment. Integral ecology in Noveleta means designing with nature, not against it. It means honoring the vulnerability of place and the strength of the people. Then came Encantiera, a mountain sanctuary in Batangas. Here, integral ecology deepened into sacred stewardship. We planted, we built, we prayed. Architecture became a vessel for ecological consciousness and spiritual renewal. We held an Ecology Sunday, welcoming parishes and cultivating regenerative farming practices. Encantiera Sancta is not just a site, it is a way of being. The impact could be tangible. In Manila, we see estero communities gaining safer, more dignified spaces. In Noveleta, adaptive structures can now stand where floods once claimed homes. In Encantiera Sancta, the land is healing, and so are the people. We've seen peace emerge from participation, care from collaboration, and sustainability from shared vision. This could be a continuing experience. Young people and local citizens were at the heart of it all. Students, fisherfolk, barangay leaders, they shaped the initiative with their stories, their labor, their dreams. In every site, we invited them not just to participate, but to co-create. Their involvement turned architecture into a collective act of care. And we are not done. We are expanding the initiative locally through barangay partnerships and nationally through architectural education and policy dialogue. The journey continues, rooted in integral ecology, because architecture at its best is not just about buildings, it's about belonging, it's about people and relationships. This is my journey, this is our shared ecology, and this is the architecture of hope.
Each time I listen to this kind of experiences, it makes me really move because even though Manila, the Philippines are very far from Medellin, Colombia, we struggle really with the same challenges, but we all have our unique way of thrive through it. So I would like us to welcome Maria Cynthia. She's connected with us, and I'm going to ask her some questions in order to understand more about the projects she talked about. Let's see if she's here.
Yes, hello, good afternoon.
Hi, Maria Cynthia. Yes, so we're very humbled to have you here. Thank you for being with us despite the difficulties with connection. And the video is very inspiring, and you have mentioned how architecture is really about belonging, people, and relationships. I cannot agree more. And I want to talk about it. Like, you talk about nature-based solutions, for example. Why do you think it is important for students, for the communities, and of course for young people, to see that architecture isn't just about building structures, but instead building relationships with others and nature?
Yes, it is important for students and young people to understand that architecture goes far beyond the act of constructing buildings. It's fundamentally about shaping the human experience, fostering belonging, and nurturing relationships. When architecture is approached as a social and cultural practice, it becomes a tool for healing, inclusion, and empowerment. It can respond to the needs of the communities, reflect shared values, and create spaces where people feel seen, safe, and connected. By recognizing this deeper purpose, young architects are encouraged to design not just with technical skill, but with empathy, imagination, and responsibility, building environments that support life, memory, and collective resilience.
Thank you, Loli. And I think I was also very touched about the Encantiera project. As you were saying, I understand that your experience is important, that considers all actors to become protagonists of transformation. And we were talking yesterday about that how co-responsibility lead us to better initiatives together. So could you share with us how do you manage to listen to all the different voices to reach a common agreement? Because we know that that can be very challenging.
Especially now, no? I liked it that you asked about the different voices. Listening to different voices and arriving at shared decisions begins with being fully present. Like, I have to be here where I am, not just hearing words, but honoring the emotions, the histories, and aspirations behind them. In the spaces I work in, whether with communities like Teramoy or when I mentor my students in thesis, I've learned that co creation starts with trust. We hold space for stories, map out values, and use tools like sketching, dialogue circles, even rituals to find a common ground. It's not about debate, but about dialogue, where every voice contributes to a shared vision. We use participatory methods like consensus building or rotating leadership to ensure decisions reflect a collective wisdom. And most importantly, we stay relationally accountable. We follow through, stay transparent, and celebrate small wins together. Co creation is not just a method, it's also a way of being in relationship with people and place.
Thank you, Loli. Accountability is a word we just heard this morning, and I really want to say thanks to one of our participants that say that because it is important also to hold all of us, institutions and communities accountable for what's happening. So let's talk about future. Like what steps are you taking in order for this initiative to continue to expand and also with this design in dialogue also with nature?
You know, we are in the early stages of expanding this initiative, both locally and nationally, and much of it, it's still unfolding. At the local level, we're continuing conversations and collaborations in places like Teramoy and the barangays. These are the communities along the Estero, Tripa de Galina. It's 7 kilometers, so there are many communities there, and we continue the dialogue with them, where we hope to deepen our work with bamboo, ecological design, and community rituals. Now, in academic spaces, we're exploring how to embed these principles into thesis mentoring and material research, especially through the envisioned Bamboo and Earth Lab in Batangas. In Encantiera, we're thinking of putting up a materials laboratory, no? And then nationally, we're laying the groundwork through events like the Nationwide Architecture Week, through partnerships with groups like the United Architects of the Philippines, Resilience Architects, and again, Encantiera, which we hope will become platforms for sharing stories, prototypes, and frameworks. We're also developing a podcast. Funding campaigns are being worked at to amplify voices and support this effort. It's a journey of listening, adapting, and building trust. And while we are not there yet, we're committed to growing this movement with care and intention. We want to go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah. Yes, intention is very important also for what we do because things can get very messy sometimes. Things can go not the way we were expecting, but intention is really important. That gives the soul to all the activities that we do in each of our countries. Thank you, Lali.
Thank you. Thank you too. And you're very welcome.
Inspired by this, I'm very moved. I think that I really need to stretch. We will go to the European continent for the last city of today's connections. And this is a small, more or less, city in the north of Italy, Trento. And they're going to show their experience with youth-led activities for participation, solidarity, and peace. I will introduce them with a video. I knew you already saw a sneak peek of our guests. And I'm going to say hello, ciao, to our hosts, our guests that we have invited to join us today. They are I'm mixing languages right now, I'm sorry. The Deputy Mayor of the Municipality of Trento, Elisabetta Bozzarelli, along with two young people. Hello. Elisa Calza and Arone Mattedi. They are young council representatives from Trento, so let's say hello to them. Ciao. We are delighted to have you today. Unfortunately, I'm going to try to manage the way with the English and Italian without mixing my languages and enter in circuit here. But we wanted to get to know more about these initiatives you just shared with us in the video, because there were no words, but you stood up words like care, empowerment, together, creativity, and peace. So, Dr. Bozzarelli, your city puts a lot of spotlight in youth engagement, which is why it's promoting civic participation, solidarity, and peace, such a vital goal for Trento City.
Hello. Good morning to everyone. Thank you for this opportunity. Talking about youth participation means concretely talking about the present and the future of our democracy, but also the future of our cities. Cities are places of opportunity, innovation, creativity, but also is a place of environmental, social, and economical challenges. The offering of ideas, proposals, and even critical issues that new generation are led to express, consistent with the challenges of their time and the innovation they bring, improves the life of a community. And it improves, I'm convinced, not only for young people, but for everyone. We need to give each other the opportunity to establish dialogue, or at times to act as a mouthpiece. Trento has been a frontier land for centuries, a land at the intersection of Mediterranean area and Germanic culture. Trento has been a land of dialogue between peoples and religion. Looking at today, the challenge of dialogue remains the challenge of our time in the world. The challenge of laying down weapons and making room for speech and encounter each other. On a small scale, it is also the challenge of dialogue between different generations. Trento continues to hold on its soul and to pursue with conviction this path, a universal project in which we recognize ourselves as part of an interdependent world. The words in the video are projects we experiment every day. Thank you for this event that connects young people and cities from different parts in the world, reminding us that we are all inhabitants of the same planet, and altogether we are co-responsible for a future of justice, peace, and opportunity for all. Thank you. I leave the floor to Aronne and Elisa to express how in Trento we try to make peace, creativity for all, opportunities, and dialogue together. Thank you.
Thank you, Dottoressa Bozzarelli. Grazie. I think it's important to underscore how it is essential to cultivate spaces for youth leadership together with other generations. So that's pretty amazing. And Elisa, Aronne, and your input is really critical in order to know what's the real impact of all those efforts that your city is taking. So can you tell us more about how you and other youth have been engaged in shaping and carrying out these initiatives in Trento?
Sure. Firstly, hello to everyone. And yes, Bozzarelli was saying in Trento, we have a strong community around student representation institutions, such as the school councils. I personally got active through that. And that gave me the possibility to link and meet with thousands of people, and definitely that opened me doors that right now I'm also experiencing. And the municipality is in general open, and it's common for us to discuss with them themes as public transports and student nightlife that is essential for us as youth to leave the city and be present.
Thank you, Elisa. And Aaron, what were the main methods or approaches that were used to encourage you to participate?
Thank you very much also for the invite. Well, that's a really good question because it makes me think about all the attempts, success, but also failures that we went through in order to encourage youth participation. I think that the main methods that we tried is to be as present as possible in ordinary people's life. By, for example, having our meetings of the student councils inside of the buildings where people could see us working. Because in fact, it's really important to be seen because many times participation is felt useless and far away. So it's important to be closer by also engaging with the community through debates or through events. Of course, also communication through social media, flyers is important, but I think that the most important thing is having space where people can gather, discuss, and feel part of the change / be listened.
Thank you. So it's good to see that there are approaches to engage you. And one question in order to understand better the tangible changes you have observed. So what were those tangible changes that you have observed in your community or also between your peers as a result of these initiatives?
That's also an interesting question because it's one of those questions that we as student rep we must think in order to be more transparent and accountable on what we are doing. But some tangible changes that we see are especially in two main fields. The first one, that we have been able to create projects that last for years. In fact, we've been able to engage the community into projects and debates. It can make our community stronger. For many years, we've seen that many thought processes, ideas, and debates have been lost because the community was not engaged, and all of those things were seen as done by only some people. But what we're trying to do now is to make our discussion to last, so that people that come after us could see what we've done and decide to make it better or change. Also, with the community being engaged, what we've seen is that it makes us more representative of what we propose to the administration, because the ideas that we propose are backed by the people, by the community, and so they are more representative. So in the end, a tangible change that we see is that the community is engaged, they know what we do, and they want even more to get involved.
Thank you, Aaron. This is impressive also to know that you are holding accountable also your city, and this is very important. So, Dottoressa Bozzarelli, you have among young people a crew that is handling you through these processes, and it is very impressive. Are you proud of these young people? Because yes, it seems that
A lot.
you can be very proud of them.
A lot. Really.
So thank you so much for being with us. Just in few seconds, how are you planning to evolve this engaging with participants, with the young people, and are you monitoring it in some way?
We are starting a project for planning the policy for young people for the next 5 years. Is a process that we will do with the young people, the representative of them, but also the little one, because we want to be with all the people in our city together and for a co-construction of this objective and also the planning to monitoring it. And I think is a good idea to do it together, because the best policy that we can make in our city are the best if they are made together.
Thank you so much. And thank you for being here with us. Grazie a voi anche ragazzi. Un applauso anche per loro.
Bye bye.
Sì.
Thank you.
So those were our 3 cities for today. It's a lot to take in, so I'm going to just let it go deep inside my bones and being very grateful for those experiences. I can relate to many of them, of course, with different approaches, but I think it's important to see that we all as humanity are together in this. And I'm very humble to say that from Trento, which was the natal city from Chiara Lubich, we're going to start our time out for peace. As we said yesterday, this time out for peace is an response and an initiative that wants to wave a net, a candle, a light to other people around the world for peace. It was first proposed by Chiara Lubich in 1991 during the Gulf War. And it was born to create a human chain that links all together for peace. So we can stand up right now to have this moment together. Being grateful for being here present today. United with thousands of kids, youth, and adults in every country of the world, we ask for peace in every nation on earth, suffering armed injuries, wars, or violence at any scale, especially for African countries, as in Democratic Republic of Congo, Ethiopia, Sudan and South Sudan, the Sahel nations, Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, Chad, Nigeria, Cameroon, Libya, Mozambique, Somalia, Yemen, the entire Middle East, Ukraine and Russia, Myanmar, Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, the Philippines, Mexico, Guatemala, Colombia, Venezuela, Haiti, and wherever violence and injustice persists. Thank you for this moment.
Merci beaucoup, Mélissa. Un applaudissement pour notre reconnaissance à Mélissa et à tous ceux qui nous ont présenté leur témoignage aujourd'hui, s'il vous plaît. Merci beaucoup. Bon. Notre espoir, c'est que, à travers ces témoignages de vision et de bonnes pratiques que nous essayons de partager pendant ces 3 jours, nous retrouvons où et comment notre contribution peut se faire dans nos cités et dans notre communauté. Donc hier, nous avons suivi des exemples de bonnes pratiques en Afrique et en Amérique. Aujourd'hui, nous avons suivi en Asie et en Europe. Demain, avec Mélissa, nous allons continuer notre voyage qui sera toujours aussi riche et inspirant. Un autre moment qui a été pensé pour enrichir notre réflexion est le moment de la table ronde. Aujourd'hui, elle sera modérée par Rainer Guth. Rainer, you are welcome avec tes panélistes. Applaudissements, s'il vous plaît, pour les encourager.
A round of applause, please,
Merci
for Rainer.
Thank you. Since we're going to continue the conversation And yesterday we said this was all a conversation starter and that we wanted to aim for relational truth so we can learn from each other's perspectives. I ask you all to get up again and just change your seat with the person next to you. So you change your perspective just slightly and you get ready for a new panel. Thank you. I invite my panelists to already join me on stage. So I hope your perspective has been a little renewed. I see some people cheated and stayed in their same chair, but I won't say anything. But the camera sees everything. We have a very distinguished panel. The hardest thing will be saying the last name of actually one of the panelists, but the rest of the panel should be easy. So on my right, I have Osvaldo Barrenechea, who is from Argentina. He did his PhD in the US, actually, in University of Arizona. And he is a professor of history, has been a visiting scholar in many different countries. I'm not going to give the whole list, otherwise we won't finish today. He's co-director of the International Center for Dialogue with Contemporary Culture of the Focolare Movement, on the board of many other things, but most importantly on the board of Together for a New Africa. Next to me here I have Alexander Simoon, Belgian, who is a teacher, Youth for United World, representative for New Humanity NGO at UNESCO in Paris. So dealing with our UN colleagues there. Then we have Jonathan Masuta. Je vais le dire en français, parce qu'il va parler en français. Il est le président du Conseil de la jeunesse de la SADC, donc SADC, et président du Forum international de la jeunesse africaine pour le développement de l'Afrique, FIJADA. Magnifique. And then we have Reka Semerkani. I got her last name right. We're good. She is from Hungary. They say the language in heaven is Hungarian because it takes an eternity to learn it. But she speaks it already. She is a former US ambassador of Hungary to the US, an expert on energy, security, cybersecurity. She has a PhD in energy economics. She's a mother of 4, and it's hard to find her wherever you want to look for her because she's always in a different country, even and lives in different ones. So we got very lucky that she's actually here in Nairobi right now. So with this panel, we have the very simple task of dealing with all the questions about the UN. No problem, right? We already heard some questions that came up this morning. And we know, as we said, it's part of a conversation. We do not pretend to have all the answers. We want to give some of our perspectives. We'll try to look a little back. We'll try to look a little forward. And we'll try to look a little inside, both the UN and perhaps ourselves. Because while we can undoubtedly say that the UN is imperfect, it is also as imperfect as our own governments, as our own human systems, and as imperfect as we ourselves as human beings. Every system needs renewal, and we hope that our reflections can contribute to what can we learn from this 80 years of experience, this grand experiment of trying to bring humanity together with, of course, many failures and perhaps some successes. But I know some people were saying, well, why are we celebrating the UN? Is there anything to celebrate? Well, perhaps at an anniversary, it's a time to reflect. In English, you would say to take stock, to ask, what can we learn from this? And there are, I like this phrase very much, 2 obstacles to success, to progress, I should say, 2 obstacles to progress. One is failure, and the other is success. And it's the second that is the worst. Sometimes we get so used to our systems, that is the way that it's always done, that we no longer see how it goes forward. And that's where crises, moments of transition, moments where the whole world is asking ourselves, how can we do this better, are real opportunities. And yes, we are part of that opportunity. The conversations here, the conversations from this panel, and all the conversations that will come afterwards. I will invite our panelists to try to be as concise as possible. I invite them to remember to hold the microphone up so we can be followed also not only in the room but also online. And do remember the interpretation, so to speak slowly. Let's start with Osvaldo. Let's have a look first at history. Someone said once, all history is contemporary history because it's always read from right now. How would you say right now we should read the history of the UN? How can we read the history of the UN? Over to you.
Thank you very much. Well, 80 years after its founding, the United Nations remains one of the most ambitious projects in human history, an attempt to organize coexistence through law, dialogue, and cooperation. Conceived in the aftermath of the Second World War, it was born from the conviction that international peace could no longer rely on balance of power or alliances, but on a permanent system of collective responsibility. In its first decades, the United Nations provided the institutional setting for the end of colonial empires and the birth of new nations, many of which are from this continent. Between 1945 and the 1970s, the General Assembly served as the platform where emerging states claimed recognition and equality. At the same time, the UN helped codify the moral foundations of the post-war era. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948 established principles that became reference points for individuals and governments alike. The following decades, however, exposed the system's contradictions. The Cold War divided the Security Council and paralyzed collective security. The very body meant to prevent conflict became a stage for ideological confrontation. Yet, even in those years of tension, the UN sometimes fulfilled its role as a diplomatic buffer. A striking example was the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962, where the UN became a global theater of negotiation. The presentation of photographic evidence, in that case by the United States, in an age without social media or instant communication, revealing Soviet missiles deployed in Cuba, allowed the world to witness in real time the effort to avert catastrophe. That confrontation, mediated through the United Nations, helped open dialogue between the superpower and save humanity from nuclear war. In other areas, however, the limits of the organization were evident. The veto in the hands of powerful nations became an instrument of paralysis, and the promises of collective action gave way to the logic of bloc politics. The early 1990s appeared to open a new chapter. The end of bipolar confrontation seemed to grant the UN a new legitimacy, but the optimism faded. More recently, new conflicts and the persistence of humanitarian emergencies have exposed the fragility of the UN's authority. For many young people today, the United Nations might seem remote, a distant bureaucracy, more visible in ceremonies than in daily life. Yet, it is vital that the new generations know this history. Without memory, the institutions appears meaningless. With memory, it becomes a testimony to the effort, however imperfect, to replace force with dialogue. Having said that, and from my perspective from Argentina, a former colonized country in a Latin American context, I would say that all this is not enough. I would like to share with you some thoughts that a multicultural group reflected on during the preparation of this event. This is already a sign of the path we have been following, which we are proposing to you these days, and which we want to continue moving forward. In other words, thinking together and ensuring that our reflection is the result of collective work. So we say, it seems reductive to add superficial convergences or further proposals to those already existing to the broad technical institutional debate currently underway, in particular on the organizational and financial restructuring of the United Nations. Among other things, numerous indications of reform and reorganization seem anchored to the same logic that shaped the UN system at the end of World War II, and do not go beyond the geopolitics dominated today by certain international actors for whom nationalism is not just a strategy, but a worldview. We cannot limit ourselves to confirming the economic and political foundations of an inadequate logic of power distribution, which the main political actors do not want to change. A new culture of fraternity that we want to incarnate in a context of epochal change rather urges us to offer a broader vision anthropologically, culturally, and politically. In the context of cities, communities, care, we will take a stand in favor of international law, of a legal system that is adequate to meet current challenges. But we must ask for more. It is clear that the current international architecture is collapsing because the values on which it was founded are now being denied. There is a huge deficit in identifying the common good of humanity. It is desirable to propose a critical reflection on the different conceptions of the relationship between order and power, between sovereignty and interdependence, the need to reform the international order to respond to transnational crises, the application of the principle of fraternity and reciprocity. Therefore, in the long term, another international architecture is urgently needed. But in the short term, which means now, we need to build from the bottom up. We need to give new relational context to the constituencies that support international institutions as civil society, voluntary organization, young people, and religions. We can bring out the strength of communities with their values, a new network perspective. This is particularly true for youth movements, which have already demonstrated their ability to reframe global issues such as climate change, racial injustice, and gender inequality, among others. Finally, after all, we might say that 80 years after San Francisco, the United Nations stands not as a monument to perfection, but as a living reminder that cooperation is humanity's most radical idea, one that must be rediscovered by each generation if peace is to endure. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It reminded me of a quote: if you want to break the chains of injustice, you need to understand the forces that forge them. So our history is not just an extra added value. We need to understand why the UN came to be as it is now. We need to see what worked. And you very much reminded us that it is not just the nations or the very nice staff, some of which that we met today, but it is also the people in this room, the NGOs, the people like Alex who are representatives of these NGOs to the UN that are helping build things up from the ground up. So there's a lot of opportunity there. Alexander, maybe I can give you the easy question, but what is there to celebrate? What other positives are there? What can you tell us from what you've seen?
Well, let me start with an experience I did last Thursday, the day before coming here. Because also me, I would like to go back to the moment of birth of the UN for a moment. Last week with my students, I'm a teacher, we went to a place, a museum in Belgium, and the museum has a big wall. On this wall, there are 21,000 pictures of people who have passed through the place where the museum is currently located during World War II. These are Jewish people and Roma people. And this was an old army base where the people were put on the train to go to the eastern side of Europe. They were brought there by the Nazi regime. Most of these people have died during the Second World War, and in total during the Second World War, around 55 million of people have died. And the reason why I wanted to tell this is because it's important to remember also why the United Nations have come about. The first article, at the birth of the United Nations, we could say the proposition that was made to humanity at that moment, the name that was given to this initiative, the first article of the Universal Declaration on Human Rights says, all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. They are endowed with reason and conscience and should act towards one another in a spirit of brotherhood. So this was the proposal made to all nations, but to all of us as well, at the moment of birth of the United Nations. And when we look at the past decades, we have to witness, unfortunately, as was already said, that in this period since the foundation, the UN has failed in this first mission to guarantee collective security. On the other hand, the child has grown up and has discovered other areas of life, other domains in which it could act. And many UN agencies, such as UNEP, have been given life as well. So the UN today is active in many, many fields. And when we celebrate a birthday, it's good to put the spotlight on those things we can be grateful for. Think about demining programs which have a concrete impact on people's lives, the World Food Programme, the life of the oceans, which is not that visible for us, but is so important, children's rights, the right for education, and many, many, many other initiatives. So I think when we celebrate UN today, we do have a reason as a human family. Very often, and we don't know this, the UN are pleading at our governments for our rights. So this morning I heard that UN should hold our governments accountable, and in a lot of instances this is taking place. For example, in Geneva at the Human Rights Council. The UN depends on the member states, and today is a difficult moment for the UN. Financially, politically, multilateralism as we have known it is in crisis. So the UN often are less strong than we imagine them. And many states sometimes seem to have forgotten this original idea. That brings us to the question, what we can do. Pope Francis speaks of multilateralism from below. Civil society is already, as Osvaldo also mentioned, organizing itself on many issues to bring about change for the good of the human family. And these days, and also in the videos we have just seen, we witness how this comes about and how very often, on a very small scale, people take initiatives to answer a need within their community, and they do this together. And this is one way to go forward as well and be of inspiration to the institutions.
Thank you so much, Alex. We'll have more time to hear more of your experiences either in the questions or also do find out what it means to be a representative to an NGO to the UN. You can get all the inside behind the scenes from Alex. I will now switch to French just to ask the question, and Jonathan will continue in French. First for the interpreters. Jonathan, vous avez une expérience avec une autre organisation internationale, l'Union africaine.
Jonathan, you have experience with another international organization.
Et qu'est-ce que votre message pour
Could you tell us how to collaborate with this institution? What is your message for us?
D'accord, merci premièrement pour la parole accordée.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak and to share my experience.
Au niveau international, l'Union africaine et les Nations unies. Tout au départ,
with my organization,
et de savoir
that it was born from a question.
Prenons le cas, il y a un intervenant qui vient de dire
What is it that we did?
la création des Nations unies, dit après la Deuxième Guerre mondiale, c'est-à-dire vers les années 1945.
When the United Nations was born and was created,
Une organisation internationale qui va réunir les pays du monde.
It did play a crucial role in promoting peace, security, development.
C'est la raison pour laquelle, en Afrique, parce que dans chaque continent, il y a une institution.
But in the context of African countries,
En Afrique, nous avons l'Union africaine qui a été mise en place.
here we have also the African Union
C'était l'organisation pour
in 1963,
Pourquoi? Parce que déjà vers les
an organization for African unity.
les pays africains étaient colonisés, raison pour laquelle ils se sont réunis pour mettre en place, les leaders de l'époque, pour mettre en place une institution qui va réunir les pays africains. C'est là la création de l'Union africaine.
And so it was created, this African Union, to put together all the African nations.
De citer les missions des Nations Unies, c'est également aussi avec l'Union africaine. L'Union africaine a été créée avec des objectifs qui est de maintenir la paix, la sécurité entre les pays
The UN also, the African Union also had this objective, like the UN, to the peace. So this is the reason for the. But many people today,
il n'y a pas l'efficacité de ces institutions.
they question the efficacy of these institutions, the value of also this challenge.
Aussi avec l'Union africaine qui définit les objectifs, ce que l'institution peut proposer.
Also, the African Union did a declaration of human rights at the level of the whole continent.
Face à plusieurs réalités, l'Afrique c'est un continent où il y a plus de troubles, de
The African is a continent where there are many conflicts in between countries,
Mais nous avons une institution
many coups d'etats.
pour maintenir la paix et la sécurité.
So we have an institution that was created to maintain peace and security, the African Union.
Le département de la paix et la sécurité qui a été mis en place.
There is a Department of Peace and Security in the African Union
Maintenir la paix entre pays, mais aussi mettre des stratégies
to keep peace among countries, to work strategies in order to prevent and resolve conflicts between countries. So we have the question today about what is the impact of the African Union if we see everything that is happening in the African continent in terms of conflicts, wars. There are many situations today in Africa. But when we speak about concrete actions,
voilà la raison pour laquelle nous allons constater, même les Nations Unies, c'est facile de dire.
Also at the United Nations, it's easy to say,
Le 80e anniversaire des Nations Unies. Imaginez.
Now we are celebrating the anniversary of the United Nations. We celebrate someone that is 80 years old, but someone that is 80 years old. How long does he have on Earth? So, what is the impact of the UN in all these aspects in terms of peace and security? So, we reflect on questions regarding peace and security. Maybe there are other emergencies also.
Par exemple, on va les fonds, le FAO. Il y a le PNID, le Programme des Nations Unies pour le développement.
There is the FAO, UNICEF, UNESCO. There are also many other agencies in the UN that they're all trying to.
Des spécificités, par exemple, par rapport à la santé, on voit quand même il y a l'amélioration, il y a l'OMS qui réalise des actions.
So there are institutional agencies for health.
Des objectifs
for health, the World Health Organization.
Parce que tout est d'abord lié à
for peace and security.
Donc c'est à travers la paix.
Everything is linked to peace because even all these agencies of the United Nations. At the end, the ultimate objective is peace, stability, even environmental programs or agencies, etc.
Représente déjà une part significative de la population au niveau mondial, surtout ici en Afrique où il y a 65%.
So young people is a big portion of humanity, even in Africa.
De faire des plaidoyers en tant que jeune.
In Africa, it's even more, where there's a very high percentage of young people.
Jeunes indépendants en esprit, cela veut dire.
We speak of young people that are independent in spirit.
De l'Union africaine. Moi, en tant que président d'un programme qui travaille en partenariat avec l'organisation continentale, lorsqu'il s'agit de respecter les lois, les règles qui a été écrites, parce que tout a été déjà écrit par rapport à la charte.
Respect laws in terms of declarations and charters, everything has been written already. We just need to be able to implement them.
Qui travaillent et non pour l'intérêt général, mais pour leurs propres intérêts ainsi que pour l'intérêt de leur pays. Raison pour laquelle moi, en tant que jeune, au sein de ces institutions, je suis là pour faire respecter ce qui a été
So regarding all these institutions, I would like them to respect what it was written. There is a text.
Mais la mise en pratique, c'est ce qui est important. Voilà la raison pour laquelle nous, de notre part, en tant que la jeunesse, nous sommes là pour faire rappeler que voilà, c'est écrit ici, il faut respecter, prendre des décisions tout en tenant compte des 54 pays de l'Afrique qui réunissent l'organisation.
We have to respect.
Une décision en tenant compte, par exemple, des 5 pays, 6 pays.
When we take a decision,
vous tenez juste des
there are heads of a state that have an influence on a continental state. There are decisions.
Donc nous, la jeunesse indépendante,
there are decisions.
Nous sommes là pour lutter pour la paix, le respect des textes, surtout dans l'unité.
We are there to respect.
Tout en tenant compte des dialogues intergénérationnels. Nous travaillons avec des aînés mais nous sommes là pour leur rappeler qu'il y a des textes qui existent, qu'il faut respecter.
So there are all these texts that need to be respected.
Thank you. Thank you so much. They seem to agree with you. I will speak again in English for the translation. If the UN lived up to its charter, if countries lived up to their constitutions, if we lived up to our own values, if religions lived up to their holy texts, things would be much better. So thank you for reminding us that it's also about staying true to the original values. And thank you for the work that you do. We'll get more chance for when the questions come out. But before we go to the big dial, the opening the floor, I'd like to hear from Reka. We've looked back a little, we've looked in. Perhaps now it's a moment to look forward. From what you've heard, from your own experience, what way forward for the UN? What way forward for us? Any reflections? Can you fix it all?
Sure, and it's quite easy, right? An easy question. No, thank you so much for the discussion and for the opportunity to think about these questions together. Because I think this is the biggest value, that we're here together to try to understand how to go forward. I don't think any of us have individually the one right answer, but I do believe very strongly that we together have a possibility to work out the right answer for not just us and our individual countries, but for all of our countries together. So I think the value of a meeting like this is invaluable. It's just impossible to say how important it is to be here and to start this discussion. And to base my thoughts on your question, I would like to give two background thoughts, if possible. One is following up on the previous speaker. How was the United Nations launched? What was the experience of humankind in that moment? Well, it was right after World War II, the most horrendous, horrible killing of everyone, everywhere in the world. The most horrible world war that the world had ever seen. So that horror, that suffering that touched everybody was really a very important launching ideal, or expressing a desire of humanity not to allow for any time in the future for a similar war to come about. Another moment or another desire that was expressed was coming from an institutional experience. Humankind never before the United Nations had an organization that included every single country. We had the League of Nations, which was an effort, but it failed completely, failed for several reasons. One was the narrowness of the membership. So the response was, we have to have an organization that has everyone in it. This was the only one. So universal membership of all the countries based on universal values. Universal values of equality of every nation with each other. I mean, this is nonsensical, right? If I come from international relations and politics, there are small nations, there are big nations. There are poor nations, there are rich nations. There are nations that have natural resources and there are nations that do not. But in front of the United Nations, the ideal, the goal, the value of equality among all of them was a foundational value. And on this, solidarity among the nations and cooperation based on dialogue as a means to deflect tensions, to not allow for tensions to grow into conflict. Yes, the United Nations had failed in many ways, has had successes in many ways, but I think the whole idea of why the importance is so special for all of humankind has to be based on that. And the second thought for this is, what is the geopolitical context today in which we have to measure, how to go forward? This geopolitical context is very different from the end of World War II. We have experienced a long era of the Cold War with a bipolar tension, with many lessons to learn from it. But then we have experienced 3 decades after 1990, as Osvaldo also mentioned, of cooperation, of increasing integration, interdependence among nations, which we can call 3 decades of peace and cooperation and prosperity even for most of the countries in the world. Now both of these 2 eras are over. We're now in a new era in which geopolitical tensions come back, in which we see Russia launching a war against Ukraine for 3.5 years at the level of World War II. I mean, horrendous suffering. China investing in strategic positions and not declaring a strong commitment to the values that we have believed in, challenging those values, wanting to rewrite those institutions. A US retreating from many of the organizations and treating friends and foes alike, almost. A Europe that is not coming about. Some positive signs and efforts for cooperation, like the African Union that we have seen. And a lot of, emerging tensions coming from under the surface, which all call for like a revision. Where are we now? So our timing is perfect. We really have to see this 80 years of experience as a great value. The successes are just as valuable as the failures for us, because we have to learn from both the successes that worked and both from the failures that did not work. And I think so on this basis, what we can see in front of us is a great value of having a universal organization in which we can all express concerns, needs, and ask for support. But there's a lot of challenging of this organization. What is the way ahead? One way is definitely to throw this out, say, there's too many problems, too big problems, too big challenges. It failed so many times, just forget it. Well, if you think reforming is so difficult, just think of the Security Council. The current members, of course, do not want to give up any of the priorities. Entering for new members, it's very challenging. There's a lot of force, there's a lot of against. What is missing, of course, is the soul of solidarity, is the soul of wanting to think and understand together. So, but if we think that reform is difficult, wait until we want to build a new one. Because building a wholly new organization on a universal level, I think is super, super difficult. It would be practically impossible. So we're risking throwing out some valuable thing because of the problems and criticisms at the expense of what? So I think what is easy from the world and global experience and what is fast is destruction. Destroy and destruct is easy. It goes fast. We can destroy all the connections that we have built up in the 80 years of the United Nations. We can throw out all the experiences of working together in a split second. It can go really fast. And if we take a look at the current geopolitical tensions, many of those tensions we see in the world now resemble exactly the tensions that we had between the 2 world wars, leading to World War, and even before World War I, leading to World War I. So we're in a very, very difficult era. There are many tensions, signs of real profound, conflict between actors. The difference from those times and today is the experience of humankind. What is the experience that we have now? We do have an experience of actually working together. Badly, wrongly, but still working together in the United Nations. We have the experience of institutions like the United Nations, in which, yes, we have some infrastructure, international, global, that has worked. We have institutions like the African Union that has already an experience of successfully building up a cooperative framework. We have institutions like the European Union, which also experience a lot of difficulties, but still has institutional memory and lessons of successes to learn from. And what is different today is that we have a very strong understanding of a dream of humanity. The dream that based on these experiences, we can actually work together, that our institutions can be serving our common good. So our task is to understand how to do this. And so I would say the most important thing for us to understand is that institutions are not like human beings. They are like the creations of human beings. They have to be given a soul. They have to be given the value every time and again, every single day, to wake up on understanding that today is the chance to go forward and to build on this. Yes, we have to develop new ways for the Security Council that will be reflected, or ways to control the Security Council, how they can veto, how they can go forward, how they have to operate. Maybe we have to develop a new structure inside the United Nations to create this like a council of compassion, to create the idea or make sure that the ideal of compassion has an institution, a framework to bring this up. But I think fundamentally the participation of engaging every country to the best of their interest and enabling the younger generation to come in and have an impact on the decisions of the United Nations. So they have the youth organizations have a presence there, as well as to enable the faith, the religious understanding of dimensions and global challenges come into the floor to be able to contribute to the discussion. We have to develop new infrastructure, new institutions for them to impact on the common decisions without destroying what we have, without destructing and throwing away the good with the bad, but in a way to be able to create the organization that it is designed to be, the soul and the expression of working together.
Thank you. So the answer is simple. We just have to give the UN and every institution a soul. Easy. It seems that values don't exist just on nice pieces of paper, no matter how well written they are. And they don't just exist out there. They need to be lived. They need to be embodied by humans, and those humans need to then instill them in the systems. And every once in a while, this needs to be refreshed and redone, just like our computers and telephones that need updates from time to time. Thank you for these different insights. I would like to open the floor, but before, I'll just give one quote. I'm full of quotes today. F. Scott Fitzgerald is an American writer. He wrote The Great Gatsby, for anyone who's interested. And he said, the test of a first-rate intelligence is the ability to hold two opposing ideas in mind at the same time and still retain the ability to function. Can we hold in our minds, the UN has problems, the UN has some good things, the UN needs fixing, we can't throw it all out. Can we hold together even our opposing views and experiences? This is a request not just for this dialogue right now, but I think for going forward, because we have many different perspectives, as we said. We want to hear them out, learn from them, be enriched by them. And it's only by that enrichment can we find a way forward. And so it's not only one idea. It might be holding many until we find the right way to give the UN that soul, to let the UN live its charter, to be able to do all the things that we feel it's called to do and that we are called to do. So we have about 20 minutes. I would ask those who ask questions to, of course, first say which language they will be speaking, give a moment for the interpretation to be ready, and then please speak slowly. Remember that the less you speak, the more love it is for the next person to allow someone else to speak. And if you have already given a question, perhaps priority to those that have not spoken yet. So I'll let Egid find people. And please also say your name.
Je vais parler en français.
Et votre nom et d'où vous venez, s'il vous plaît?
D'accord. Merci pour la parole. C'est Plamedi Mboua. Je viens de la République démocratique du Congo. J'ai deux préoccupations.
I'm from the DRC. I have two concerns. The first one,
S'adressera à Monsieur Jonathan.
I would like to ask the members of the round table. My first question is,
80 ans après,
this 80th anniversary of the United Nations,
membre permanent du Conseil de sécurité,
we have 5 members of the Security Council that they have this right to veto about everything, especially when it comes to interventions for the security of these 5 countries. 5 permanent members, 5 others that are not. So none of the permanent members are African. African is the continent that suffers the most, especially in the field of security. And so the members of the roundtable, what is it that you think about this? Shouldn't we give a possibility that one African country being represented in terms of peace or security in the Security Council? So because we are the continent that suffers the most. And the second question is,
bon, j'aime un adage qui dit l'essentiel ce n'est pas ce qu'on fait de nous, mais
Dr. Masuta,
ce qu'on a fait de nous. Bien que nous ne sommes pas, ça va un peu contredire la première, mais bien que nous ne sommes pas encore membres du Conseil permanent
it seems a contradiction. So we are not members of the Permanent Council or Security Council of the United Nations. So what is your message with as president, as representative of youth, for the African youth, in order to maintain the peace, what to do? What would be your message? But what are the mechanisms that we can transmit so that the African youth can actually put together something to maintain peace and to keep unity around us? So, another 2 questions.
Hello, my name is Susan from Kenya. I have a question. It's more of a contemplation about the fact that one of the headquarters will be Nairobi. So I'm thinking about now the SDG 11, cities, communities, and care. And I'm thinking about Nairobi as one of the, it's going to be very strategic when it comes to this SDG, to other cities as well. So I was just wondering whether there are strategies in place to make Nairobi an ideal city, so that to give an example to other cities of the kind of model that the UN has in this SDG.
Thank you. And while we take one more question, I will invite those who are following online to write their question. And if they can't raise their hand, at least to write the question, then I would ask someone to then come and read it to us. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup pour la parole. Je vais parler en français. Je viens de la...
Ok, c'est bon. Oui, allez-y. Juste le temps pour les traducteurs de se préparer. Allez-y.
Ok, merci. Je disais que je vais parler en français. Je viens de la RDC.
I speak French. From the DRC as well, I have 2 questions. The first one, I would like to know if there are articles that speak of the failures of the UN in terms of outcomes that were not reached. So in order to maybe update the charter, it's important the context. Yeah, the context where the charter was created is different from today's context.
Very simple. But like we said, we are not trying to give conclusive answers to everything. They are collective answers. Yes. there's just a question if the translation is working for those who are here in the room who are using their phones. Is the translation working? No? Okay, then if you don't have the translation, please go check with to switch your translation, to get one of the little the transmitters in the back if you need.
French is working, but they have been saying that the English is not working.
Which is not working?
The English.
English. Yeah. Okay, so if the app is not currently working, there are some other transmitters outside. Please don't all leave at the same time, but there is someone there who can help with getting just a transmitter. So, to start easy, we have a few questions. We have a question on the Security Council. Who wants to start with the Security Council and why there's no Africa and what can we do about it? Easy one.
No, I can make a reference from a historical perspective, obviously, but I know that for many of our regions, countries outside what we call the First World, this permanent seats and veto power of the Security Council has been always not beyond a problem. It was been at the very nature of inequality of power and a contradiction of what the United Nations was all about. I just want to refer an historical example, similar, because when our regional Latin American countries come together, the inspiration was to do like an American continental union. So Canada, United States were also involved. But at that time, at the end of the 19th century, the United States was a rising power, and they wanted to impose their control in the Latin American countries. And at that time, they passed what is called the Platt Amendment, that was a reform or amendment of the Constitution of the United States that was meshed into the Cuban Constitution. So you can see just the right there, the difficulty of that, no? But the Platt Amendment was an example of intervention, inequality, abuse of power, etc. For many, many years at the beginning of this experience of sharing an equal scenario of all American countries in all the continent, each country, Argentina the first one, tried to be more than the others, tried to demonstrate that beyond the United States, or second best, was Argentina. Brazil did the same, Mexico did the same, and so on and so forth. But eventually, once all Latin American countries realized that the Platt Amendment was affecting all of them, they got together, they began to work together, and eventually in 1934, the US abolished the Platt Amendment, which means that, I don't know, obviously we can bring here 80 years of examples of Security Council abuses, etc. But from a reformist perspective, the only way of changing that is getting united and push for that change. At least from a Latin American perspective, we can offer a simple, humble example that was good at that time for all of us. Once we realized that we had to work together.
Thank you. So we have the other questions about the SDGs, particularly the SDG 11 and how its impact on Nairobi. We have, how can we update the charter? Is that possible? And then, of course, we'll have the specific question to Jonathan, which I'll get to you last, so we just have time to make sure the translation is working. What do you feel like answering?
I can briefly answer that. Cool. So, to very briefly answer the question on Nairobi and the SDGs, I think as every crisis poses opportunities, no? And I think the fact that there's this current crisis of multilateralism will also bring about maybe a decentralization a shift away from the central headquarters, as we have seen, such as the example of Nairobi. And this morning already in the first panel, we heard how this creates also for young people opportunities, in the sense that there's an event at the end of this month where the young people from Nairobi can participate. And the fact that the SDG 11 on cities and communities is here in Africa is also very significant in this sense, with the average age of the population here. So I think this can be seen as an opportunity. And then maybe the question on how to update the original charter. I believe the UN is also already involved in this sense, last year in the process of the Pact for the Future. And this was also for us as an NGO an occasion to show how we approach this, and through a positive commitment, not making demands, but showing here we are and we want to live up to this soul which has been spoken about, and take the first step in living up to this soul. And I'm just to show you, and later you can ask me questions about it, but we have published Together to Care, which is showing examples of how communities all around the world in many, many different areas of life commit themselves, young people together with their communities, commit themselves to address a certain need within their communities. And I think this was also, the fact that we share this was also related to the life of the UN and their Pact for the Future, which also has a declaration on future generations, and I would recommend you to read this.
A little advertisement, a little publicity moment, a little commercial. Rekha, would you also want to add any of your thoughts on this? Also, either on the Security Council, on the updating, it seems that many of us are asking, how do we do this? No one wants to throw it all out. Like you said, it might be tricky. And also from online, we got the question from one of the countries, maybe explaining, well, why can't we change the Security Council right now? Why can't an African country be there? So if any other requests to that, and then Jonathan will get over to you. So yeah, the easy one's always for Rekha.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think it's a very important question, how to look at the Security Council and what can be done and how it can be changed. Of course, as we mentioned, the formation of the Security Council reflects the reality of the immediate post-World War II environment, in which nuclear war was a very powerful threat. So the first and the biggest responsibility of the Security Council was to stop that from happening. And I think this is not an idea that we can just throw aside. This is a very important and a huge responsibility. So in addition to all the other new problems that we're having, or new challenges, new tasks that we want the United Nations to respond to, we cannot pretend that this threat is away. This is important and this is still there. But, the veto power of the Security Council members have been used in many other occasions in which, obviously, it has not lived up to the ideal of the United Nations Charter. So the way to go about it, I think, is to, propose in a very concrete way from NGOs, youth organizations, issues organizations, grassroots organizations, very concrete suggestions. Because what I can see from having worked in both a national level in the political sphere as well as the international dynamics is that leaders do listen to these proposals. They are important, especially when they come from youth organizations that express, a new generation coming in. It can be very more powerful than what you think it looks from the outside, because the reaction may not be immediate. But launching processes and inducing new ideas is actually possible through documents like yours. So thank you so much for this. Through efforts, expressions of of change, needs of change from other youth and grassroots organizations, they're very important. And I would certainly not underestimate the impact of these messages that come out, especially if there is a global link. Like, if there is a connection between these organizations that establish a common message from various parts of the world, this is the proper place for this, to engage many organizations in many countries, commit to a common suggestion, common proposals that are concrete. Just to have a list of signatories is a powerful message for this. So I would certainly not think it's easy, but I don't think it's impossible. I think it's totally within our possibility to have the youth express their needs and desire for how to change this. And yes, adding new members to the Security Council can be one. Establishing control over the Security Council. Like, there's some discussion of having the Security Council go back to the General Assembly for a more dynamic interaction between the two. Establishing a new kind of a parallel council for gathering the representation of global representation in a more egalitarian basis can be a suggestion. So there are various options that can be explored, but I think it is totally possible, and this is the moment because, as we have seen, some of the biggest actors are challenging and being challenged, withdrawing, so there's their commitments. So there's a lot of kind of vacuum situations coming up in the global system now, which will allow for a bigger space for change.
On va passer à Jonathan en français. Alors, Jonathan, juste pour rappeler, il y avait la question, quel est votre message aux jeunes?
So now, Jonathan, now in French, what is the message to the African youth in order to interact with these agencies? This is a question that came out before. What can we tell to the countries, war-torn countries in Africa, how to face those conflicts in terms of institutional solutions? So like what Reka has just told us. Thank you to give me the possibility to answer this question. There is the question about no one African country in the Security Council. There are 5 countries that have composed the charter in 1945, San Francisco. So the majority of African countries, they were still under colonization. So therefore, there was the States, Soviet Union. It would be a question of sensitivity to make them aware, because the charter is modifiable. You can make changes, you can make amendments. But in terms of voting, when it was the moment of voting, there was this powerlessness on the side of many countries. What are the countries that can actually amend the charter? So if the majority of countries are not in agreement with this idea of the veto power of the consumer, so what do you do? So we youth, we need to make our voices there, so that an African country can be part of the Security Council once the charter will be amended. So the message to the youth, the other question, we have to be more autonomous, We have to be more independent of a spirit. Because many youth today, they follow material values. I'm the president of a continental youth association, and I send them and approve.
Tenir compte des propositions du conseil. À l'époque, c'était juste une structure. Il y avait que des jeunes.
So that there was a letter that was sent that the presidents.
Avec leur conscience, donc ils dépendaient de certaines
So as they were, there are many youth that are independent, that they have with their personality, their presence.
Parce que j'ai été élu en 2024,
That
donc j'ai un mandat jusqu'en
they were independent thinkers, so they question also the presidency.
J'ai initié une loi
So
que la présidence, avant que la présidence de la
I have
une décision, ils doivent aussi consulter
before the presidents makes so maybe the council of youth before I can make a decision, the council of youth in my organization need to agree. They need to be consulted, need to be advised. So during the year,
So before a decision is necessary to consult the youth. There was not at the beginning in our charter, but we made the amendment in our charter.
so youth has to be independent in their own spirit.
They have to be.
beaucoup plus à la jeunesse africaine.
So a certain rule
Has to be applied. They need to be involved. I call up
the youth to follow our formation programs, our training programs.
5% de la population est représentée par la jeunesse âgée de
we
moins de
must
35 ans en Afrique. Mais il y a d'autres jeunes qui sont vendus par rapport à leur esprit. Ils sont vendus, ils sont achetés facilement, ils ont vendu leur valeur. Il y a quelque chose qui n'est pas correct. En tant que jeune, on représente la majorité de la population. On achète certains jeunes et puis vous allez constater, lorsque vous vous proposez des pistes de solutions pour l'intérêt de tout le monde, il y a d'autres jeunes qui sont contre vous parce qu'ils ont
for the interest of everyone.
vous faire face. Donc,
So even many youth, they are against it.
les jeunes qui sont ici,
Of solutions for the common good. I think it's a lack of conscience, a lack of sensibility, of self-awareness. Many times they are ambassadors, the youth of
lorsque nous sommes devant les autorités,
awareness of.
Ils doivent nous écouter.
We have to. Who has decision power needs to listen to the youth.
D'autres jeunes pour que non, c'est pas ça. Nous devons
we have to listen.
Et non l'obstacle. Donc je demande
we have to be independent.
D'autres jeunes. Si vous n'avez pas des informations par rapport,
we have to be a strong presence. A formation that allows us to have strong. The lack of training is a problem. In order to make concrete proposals, there are training workshops at a Pan-African level. They are addressed to the youth with many resources to form the leaders. So, Together for a New Africa, they have beautiful, interesting objectives in this sense, and this allows us to make the youth aware of all African countries, to have an impact at the level of the whole continent. So I leave a message to the youth that participate to these courses to become leaders of the future, for the future.
I apologize to all the other many questions that came online, and I know there were other people that wanted to speak. A famous artist once said, "The music is what happens in between the notes, and a conference is what happens in between the panels." So please continue the conversation after. I'm going to give the panelists their last parting message, but they have all agreed to wait here afterwards. So before you head out to lunch, yes, even though I didn't tell you, you have agreed, Alex. They can wait here. If you have any other questions, they are here today and these days Now you know them by their first name. You can ask them directly. They're also free for lunch. You can continue asking questions, okay? Politely questions. But now I'll ask them just to give their last parting message before we close. And again, apologies for not answering all the questions, but we're holding these questions together. Osvaldo, your parting word.
Well, I'm experiencing, but also enjoying in these days, diversity. So I encourage all of us, out of that diversity that will remain, to construct a new form of unity that can allow us to build up a new, not only United Nations, but a new humanity for the 21st century. Thank you.
Thank you, Osvaldo. Alex.
I would like to quote Chiara Lubich, who says that it is by starting with small local problems that a moral conscience is formed that is capable of addressing problems on a global scale. And I think the past days also, in the experiences of Together for New Africa, we have seen how this can start small, addressing a concrete need, and important is to do this together.
So I think it's very powerful as a thought to me to think that we have one planet, and on this one planet, one humankind. And so I think my departing thought is when, if not now, who if not us, and how if not for love of humanity.
Je vais conclure avec une pensée du le 35e président
I want to conclude.
qui disait ne demandez pas ce que votre pays peut faire pour vous,
Someone that
mais demandez ce que vous pouvez faire pour votre pays.
it's Kennedy. So don't ask what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. So you have to actors of change in your country in order to lead unity.
Our task is as easy as that, to be the change, to give a soul to the UN and to all our institutions. And of course, to do that, we also need a break, and we need lunch, and we need you to continue these conversations, like I said, both with them and with one another. I give the floor back to the MCs, and thank you again to the wonderful panelists.
That's not enough. A round of applause, please, for this wise panel. Thank you very much for everything.
Reconnaître la valeur
Thank
de
you
ce
for
qu'ils
this
ont donné, s'il vous plaît.
amazing conversation.
Merci beaucoup.
So, yes, it's time to stop, to go back to the roots, and to restart. So we count on the collaboration, better collaboration between all the organizations that work with the UN to rebuild the cities, more cities, communities with care. So thank you very much for this morning session.
Donc, nous allons commencer cet après-midi donc,
So we start this afternoon
avec l'équipe qui va nous présenter notre deuxième session interdisciplinaire sur le modèle de partage de
with the second interdisciplinary session.
Donc, je vais vous demander d'accueillir avec des applaudissements.
The title is Patterns of Sharing, Sustainability, and Co-Responsibility. So we welcome Catherine Belsour from the University of Tours in France, and with her, she's the moderator, Agnès Marie Kawo of University of Douala in Cameroon.
Madame Pink, Division du droit, Programme des Nations Unies pour l'environnement. Bienvenue.
Reshape Peng, Law Division of UNEP, United Nations Environment Program, and Ambrose Kilonso from the Africa Interfaith Youth Network, and the African Council of Religious Leaders.
Sœur Priska de l'université.
They might need some
Sophia,
light
bienvenue.
on the stage. Thank you. Priska Stila from Sophia University in Lopiano. Good afternoon to everyone.
So welcome to everyone. Welcome also.
So there are people on Zoom, people on YouTube. Welcome to everyone to this set for things for the technical situation.
Bonne session. Merci beaucoup.
So we can start now. Thank you.
Qui sont en ligne pour leur patience. Donc, comme ça a été indiqué,
thank you for everyone who is linked online. So the first part of this session will be in French. The second part will be in English.
Tout le monde ici sait que
in this session,
l'urbanisation en Afrique est un phénomène ultra rapide.
We know the urbanization in Africa is a very quick phenomenon. And at times this causes a lot of difficulties even at a local level because it's based on traditions, based on villages. So a new model of urbanization, a model that is inclusive, that is culturally founded and ecologically lasting. We cannot integrate the values of the village, of the African village, and the richness of the ancestral traditions. We will find the resources there to strengthen the social cohesion and the presence on the territory. So, to respond to this challenge, we now see something together of some concrete examples of innovation, of progress that has been made, and the steps in ahead, initiatives that incarnate these efforts. So dialogue, ancestral traditions, etc., in a way that they can be sources of inspiration and a drive to go ahead. So it's a roundtable that is interdisciplinary. We have 4 representatives. We have someone, an anthropologist, a sociologist, a psychologist, and an expert in political science. So the first intervention is Agnès Marie, is a Cameroonian from the University of Douala, is a sociologist, and she will speak in particularly of the concept of social love that justifies the community sociality. Good afternoon to everyone. This morning, we spoke about institutions, among them the United Nations. And with that round table, we enter into the transformation that can change the social fabric. On what happens in the civil society now. African cities face many challenges, but if we look closely at daily life in African urban spaces, we also see many strong communities. These communities live by informal mutual help, reciprocity, and solidarity. However, because cities bring together many different ethnic groups, people often feel pushed toward what some scholars call the individualism of necessity, like
everyone has to take care of themselves. As traditional family ties weaken in cities, new forms of community emerge based not on kinship, but on shared choices, values, and goals. These urban communities often support systems like informal social protection and services, especially for people who might otherwise feel alone. But one question remains central. How can these communities avoid closing in on themselves?
D'une culture individualiste, la présence des conflits et le manque d'intégration sociale pacifique, les recherches révèlent
Researchers today talk about new forms of social connection
à agir
and solidarity.
contribuant à
And one
revitaliser
key idea is social law, developed by the international research group Social One.
D'un point de vue théorique, la tentative de révéler la présence de cette
So,
force
social law reflects to acts and relationships based on generosity without calculating whether something will be given back.
qui passeraient inaperçus si on n'avait pas ces instruments pour les identifier.
Some practice of solidarity that we can see. So, it's the concept of social law. This group, Social One, we spoke about, has developed this.
Qui englobe des interactions,
It identifies a type of solidarity,
dépourvues de calcul
of interaction, social interactions, without calculating
opérationnalisation, donc pour bien comprendre le
whether
concept
something will be given back.
on a 4 dimensions
So, researchers describe 4 key dimensions of social law. The superabundance, giving more than expected, caring for others and for nature, recognizing the dignity of every person, and universal openness, going beyond our own group.
Sur le site de Social One que je vous invite à visiter.
You can find all of the
Dimension de la surabondance. La surabondance, une action surabondante, c'est une action dans laquelle on donne
rewarding, giving more than expected.
ne l'exige. Plus que ce qu'on
So to
reçoit.
give more on what the situation asks for, or more on what you have received.
La deuxième dimension, c'est
So there is no measure.
d'autrui.
There is no restitution. The second point is caring for
Un
others,
bénéfice tangible à autrui, avec la
with the
priorité à
idea
son bien-être.
to bring a benefit to
La
others,
troisième dimension, c'est la
the
reconnaissance
well-being
de
of the
l'autre.
other.
C'est la reconnaissance de
The
l'autre
third
permet
dimension is the recognition the dignity of every person that allows the acceptance and the welcoming
quelle qu'elle soit.
of the person
Et la
with
dernière
respecting his
dimension qui
dignity and
caractérise
his
l'amour social, c'est la dimension de
individuality.
l'universalisme.
And the fourth dimension is universal
Lorsqu'il
openness,
va au-delà des personnes avec
the
lesquelles on a un lien de
universal
parenté
law
ou avec son propre groupe d'affinité.
that goes beyond our own group, our own kinship,
Peuvent permettre
our
de
own
dire que nous
communities.
avons posé un acte d'amour
These
social ou que
four
notre
dimensions
comportement
allow
est
us
marqué par un amour qui est social.
allow us to talk about social law.
Alors que la Banque mondiale utilise le produit intérieur brut pour mesurer la richesse
So, as the
économique
World Bank measures economic wealth
l'index de l'amour
with
social,
GDP,
qu'on
gross
appelle
domestic
le World
product,
Index.
the World
L'indice
Love
de l'amour
Index, the
social
Social Love
construit
Index,
en se basant sur les dimensions de l'amour
measures
social, explore et
how
mesure
much
le niveau
social
de
solidarity
solidarité
exists
présent dans les divers pays du
in
monde.
different countries.
Alors, c'est aussi intéressant, nous pouvons aussi aller voir en détail cet index, ce qui a aussi
So we can go into
celui qui s'appelle
details now
World Love
about this
Index, on a des détails.
Social Love
Mais ici,
Index.
j'aimerais juste prendre un aspect. En contexte africain, les valeurs fondamentales de l'Ubuntu
In the African context, the spirit of Ubuntu I am because we are already contains the values of social love.
Et de les interpréter dans la dynamique de
And it's
transition
important to
urbaine
identify
en
them
cours dans le continent.
and to adapt them to modern
Les
city
résultats
life.
des diverses études, à l'instar de ceux
After several studies, the outcomes have been
et le
of this social love index
n'ont pas
shows
significativement affaibli l'Ubuntu. Dans une large mesure,
it shows that urbanization and individualization have not destroyed Ubuntu. Rather, people are adapting Ubuntu to modern city life.
de vie moderne. Par exemple, dans le classement
For
général
instance,
du World Love Index, vous savez qu'il classe les pays
in
selon
the
le degré
index, in the
de
ranks,
solidarité qu'on peut y observer. Dans le classement général du World Love Index, qui ordonne les pays selon le degré
according
d'amour
this
social, le
index,
Kenya arrive en 21e position
Kenya
sur 87
ranks
nations étudiées.
21st
Lorsqu'on
out of
regarde le
87
classement
countries
selon la dimension de la surabondance, il
on
apparaît
social
que
law.
3 pays africains, le Kenya,
If we go to the
le
category
Nigeria
of
et la
giving more than expected,
trouvent parmi les 10 premières nations.
the
Le
superabundance,
Kenya est même placé deuxième sur 87 pays en termes
Kenya
de
ranks
surabondance, donc d'amour
second in the
social.
world
Et on retrouve dans la culture kenyane,
in
comme
this
d'ailleurs
superabundance
dans
of this
les autres
social.
cultures africaines, des éléments qui confortent ces résultats.
In the
Les
Kenyan
indicateurs de
tradition,
surabondance
there
dans le
are
World
elements
Love
that confirm
Index
these
montrent
outcomes.
que le sentiment d'appartenance et de
In the social
participation
love, this indicator of
en donnant et
superabundance
en aidant. Pour mieux observer l'ancrage
is
culturel
best
du
is
principe de
built
surabondance,
out
on
of
peut prendre le
helping.
cas de la pratique ancestrale
So
kenyane
to understand
appelée
these cultural
Harambee,
roots of this principle of
qui se
abundance,
vit indépendamment de la classe sociale, de
we
l'ethnie,
think of the
de
Harambe
l'appartenance religieuse, aussi bien
all
dans les
pulled
zones
together
rurales que les zones urbaines. Cette pratique trouve
across
ses
class,
origines
ethnicity, and
dans le
religion.
système séculaire
And
de
people
vie
come
communautaire,
together to
dans
support
lequel
one another,
l'épanouissement individuel est
to support one
intimement
another
lié à celui du groupe.
for school fees,
Dans la vision
for
africaine
medical
du monde,
needs.
le pauvre n'est pas prioritairement celui qui n'a pas de biens
In the
matériels,
African tradition,
mais
poverty
celui
is
qui ne
not just
possède.
lacking things. It is lacking
Les
people.
reconstructions
Poverty
ethniques
is
en
not
milieu
having
urbain, puisque
relationships
lorsque les
with
personnes se
others.
retrouvent en milieu urbain, le premier réflexe, c'est la reconstruction selon les ethnies. Dans ces reconstructions ethniques en milieu
Even in
urbain,
cities,
participe de la
people
volonté
rebuild
de
networks that maintain
réaffirmer
solidarity
son
and cultural
identité
identity.
originelle, de conserver et de transmettre
And
les
these
valeurs
solidarities
de
are
l'Ubuntu.
expanding beyond family and ethnic boundaries toward universal
En Côte
brotherhood.
d'Ivoire dit,
There's a
un
proverb
homme sans compagnon
that
est comme
Ivory
une main
Coast
sans doigt.
says, a man with a companion
Comme
is
le
like
dit
a hand
populièrement au
without
Cameroun,
fingers.
quelqu'un est quelqu'un
As we just say
derrière
in
quelqu'un.
Cameroon, someone
La
is someone
solidarité
behind someone.
comme intra-groupe, comme nous l'avons répété
Solidarity
précédemment, tend à transcender les frontières ethniques.
among
Comme nous
groups
l'avons relevé,
tends
transformer
to
les frontières
transcend
ethniques, religieuses et
ethnic
nationales
boundaries.
jusqu'à devenir universelles,
Therefore,
c'est-à-dire inclure d'autres personnes qui ne sont pas de notre ethnie.
it
Les
goes
personnes commencent
beyond
à s'associer généralement par un
goes
centre
the
d'intérêt
boundaries
et
of
pour
nationality
résoudre
or
des
religion.
problèmes de leur vie
It becomes
collective.
universal.
Donc, nous voyons donc en ville, on est en train de passer progressivement des sociabilités ethniques
Therefore,
liées à notre origine, des sociabilités naturelles aux sociabilités volontaires construites dans le désir d'assainir le
from
tissu
a
social,
humanitarian
dans le désir de
sociality,
solidarité,
we
et
can
aussi dans le
go
désir de s'entraider mutuellement pour construire un mieux-être
to
communautaire.
a universal
Alors, nous pouvons dire que loin d'être une
sociality.
réalité homogène, les villes africaines représentent une mosaïque de situations différenciées
So African
du
cities
point de vue social,
are diverse
spatial
and
que culturel.
complex.
Cependant, elles
They
ont en
hold
commun le
both
fait
modern
d'abriter
influences
à la fois
and deep cultural
une modernité
traditions.
importée, mais réappropriée, et des traditions tenaces, mais largement réinventées. Malgré les défis indéniables,
To
cette
build
ville
peaceful and sustainable cities, we cannot rely only on Western models of urban development. Instead,
à les étudier à partir des modèles d'urbanisation ayant accompagné
African
la
urban
croissance
planning
des
should
villes
make space
occidentales.
for
Pour que les
community
villes du continent
networks
soient
and
des
solidarity.
catalyseurs de paix durable, l'urbanisation africaine devrait veiller dans l'organisation et l'aménagement de l'espace à
The
l'intégration
African
harmonieuse des
cities can be
formes et des
catalyzers
espaces de
of a
solidarité
lasting
communautaire.
peace. And as we said, African urban planning can make makes a space for community networks and solidarity.
L'universalisme pourrait devenir un levier pour des villes
If we
authentiquement
recognize and strengthen social law,
modernes.
especially universal openness to others, our cities can become authentically African, deeply human,
On
and
pourrait éviter le risque
truly modern
de
in
communautarisme
a
qui
sustainable
menace
way,
parfois les regroupements communautaires. Merci.
avoiding the risk of communitarianism
Agnès Marie.
that is a threat to
Bravo à
communitarian
l'Afrique pour
life.
son placement
Thank
au
you.
World Love Index.
So
On voit que
compliments
l'Afrique
to
peut vraiment
Africa
être source d'inspiration
to
avec son
provoke us a little bit with these
Nous allons
new
maintenant
forms of
continuer ce
urbanization,
panorama avec Sœur
integrating also
qui nous
the
vient de
cultural
Côte d'Ivoire,
tradition.
qui actuellement est à l'Institut Sophia en Italie, où elle étudie, elle fait une thèse dans le domaine des sciences politiques. Et
So
elle va nous
we have
montrer comment
received political science at the Sophia Institute in Lopiano, Italy. So
Merci beaucoup. Bonsoir à tous.
thank you. Good evening to everyone. Good afternoon.
Commencer mon propos, vous dire que vous entendrez dans ma présentation
Before I start,
certains
I
termes
want
comme européen, comme blanc.
to add something to my presentation.
En fait, c'est une conception que nous avons en tant qu'Africains.
I'm not European, I'm not
C'est le
white.
langage, en fait,
We Africans,
pour parler du colonisateur.
the microphone a little bit closer, first.
Mais pas dans le sens de revenir
We
sur
are-
le passé douloureux, mais pour chercher des moyens
We've
efficaces
lived,
afin de
we've
construire des
been
villes.
colonized. It's not that I want to go back to that painful
C'est une toute petite contribution que
past.
je voudrais
So we build
apporter dans
cities according to what we lived. So this
en
is,
Afrique et surtout repenser aussi la
I
durabilité.
would like to give my contribution to this development of the city in Africa,
Dans notre
contribution to urban sustainability in Africa.
dans nos ethnies peut influencer la construction de la ville. Et donc, mon thème est
How come we influence the building of modern life?
comme une contribution à la durabilité des villes en Afrique. Et
It is essential to reflect on the sustainable development of cities in Africa
essentiel de penser au développement
as urbanization in the continent.
car l'urbanisation du continent connaît une véritable
Urbanization of the continent is experiencing
Selon Countrymeters,
significant growth.
la population urbaine
According to country meters, Africa's current population is approximately
milliards d'habitants d'ici 2050. Mais nous notons que ce chiffre
1.55 billion.
défini n'est pas limité parce que ce sont des chiffres qui sont
And
donnés par des institutions selon des recherches faites
Those
sur
are
terrain.
figures given
Face à ce
by-
phénomène qui est à la fois une
by field
opportunité et un défi
professional
impératif,
searches.
les États
It's also a challenge, an opportunity, and a challenge.
tentent de trouver une gouvernance et des stratégies efficaces pour que le développement des villes en Afrique s'inscrive dans la durabilité. En effet,
So, faced with this phenomenon,
moyen par lequel
governments and international institutions are trying to find effective governance and strategies to ensure that city development aligns with sustainability.
de l'économie. La durabilité
Sustainability is a means to preserve balance, ensure respectful use of natural resources,
de ce fait,
promote social equity,
and guarantee the long-term viability of the economy.
De ce fait, la durabilité
It
cherche
seeks to
donc
introduce the idea of urban development from a long-term perspective,
développement urbain dans la perspective de long
ensuring
terme.
balance among the various
Que
dimensions
la durabilité s'inscrit
of
dans
the
le
city.
concept même de développement durable
Thus,
qui a été défini par le rapport de Brundtland en 1987 comme un développement qui cherche à satisfaire les besoins du
sustainability aligns with the concept of sustainable development defined in the Brundtland Report in 1987 as development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs.
Cette situation peut être due à la conception même de la ville, particulièrement chez le peuple Agni du Moronou de la Côte d'Ivoire. Les Agni du Moronou font partie
The challenge, however, is that the growth of cities in Africa seems slow to embrace sustainability, inclusion, and resilience.
passé lourd du colonialisme
This situation may be linked to the very concept of the city,
par voie téléphonique.
especially among the Agni people of Morono in Ivory Coast.
Nous avons quitté 20 personnes de cette région
The
du Moronou.
Agni are part of one of the four major cultural groups known as the Akan. Among the Agni of Bogano,
Colonisateur
the word city evokes a heavy colonial past. It suggests that modernity consists entirely of the structures and lifestyle of the colonizer.
différente de la mentalité
Such a
traditionnelle.
concept of the city
Cette appellation
creates a
fait croire
psychological barrier to urban development implicitly.
est un ensemble de
It
structures
leads to attitudes of rejection, refusal to engage, and lack of participation in building a sustainable city.
un obstacle psychologique au développement des villes. Cela induit implicitement
This idea of the city often leads to a cultural or identity withdrawal, which contributes
des villes.
to social conflict and hinders civic participation.
Créer un repli culturel ou identitaire
It reinforces the belief that modernization belongs to Europeans. As a result, this community may assume that building cities is the responsibility of the modern state, which has succeeded the colonizer administrative duties.
Typiquement la chose de l'européen.
If the city is perceived in this way, how can our cities become places of social, economic, and political fulfillment? How can one participate in sustainability in Ivory Coast and elsewhere? If one's native language already shapes attitudes of non-participation and exclusion?
À une telle perception, comment pouvons-nous faire de nos villes des lieux de réalisation sociale, économique et politique? Comment participer à la durabilité de la ville en Côte d'Ivoire et même ailleurs lorsque la conception de la ville dans ma langue maternelle
I believe that rethinking the concept of the city
de non-participation
could become a political tool for urban sustainability.
repenser la conception de la ville chez les Agni du Moronou.
To move beyond this perception, I propose a political approach that helps young Agni assume responsibility for sustainably developing their cities. This involves combining certain cultural elements with new social political tools through
Cette articulation peut être traduite par 5 mécanismes.
So these tools can be the integration of traditional and modern educational systems, implemented through educational programs.
Grand village en fonction de l'espace, de la population et des structures, et non plus faire une référence aux colonisateurs. Nous proposons aussi l'articulation du système éducatif traditionnel à celui moderne.
So once educated in both types of knowledge, traditionally modern, young people and children
will be able to responsibly adopt, innovate, and inculturate foreign concepts according to their own values. This educational integration can foster responsible and inclusive participation, breaking down barriers or withdrawal and identity-based conflict.
L'économie morale est en fait un instrument de
So moral economy and reciprocity and the political participation and economic participation will be key elements and will be a reciprocal obligation.
L'inculturation des valeurs traditionnelles
Also, it would be
et
aware
les religions étrangères,
the inculturation of traditional values with foreign religions, Islam, Christianity, etc.,
a été une
has been one successful process towards sustainability.
et purifier l'état des
Through these releases, the deeply spiritual Ani people actively contribute to city sustainability.
Elle a été un processus réussi dans la
They
reconnaissance de
find
l'identité de la
in Catholic social teaching values,
des mentalités,
such as mutual aid
construction des villes,
and solidarity that resonate with their cultural values. The Agni accept, embrace, and adapt to cultures.
qui a contribué au développement
For
des villes.
them, cities sustainability contributes to integral human development through respect and promotion of human dignity. This is precisely what the Catholic Church Magisterium recommends regarding key principles for sustainable city building: human dignity, solidarity, subsidiarity, the common good, and political and civic responsibility.
De croyances, de pratiques sociales et des systèmes de gestion des ressources naturelles qui lient l'homme à son environnement. Chez ce peuple, l'environnement est très important. Il faut beaucoup communiquer avec la nature. Donc cela peut
For the Agni, the environment is very, very important. So this could be a practice that can be taken to the cities. So I would like to conclude underline the policies of urban sustainability cannot not take into account the local representation, because traditional conceptions of the city can also help in urban development. If possible, we can follow this model without triggering conflicts in the cities. So,
cependant, il n'est pas impossible de construire paisiblement et durablement
it's not impossible
grâce à l'engagement
build
responsable
in a lasting way cities in Africa.
Merci beaucoup, Sœur Prisquet.
We can be responsible for one another. Thank you. Thank you for having explained all these cultural, African cultural traditions can also be an inspiration for the ecology. Now we switch to English for the second part.
So we start with Chufei.
Because the last.
So Chufei is coming from
So we
China.
start
She's
with
an anthropologist,
and
she's working
is an anthropologist.
Charlotte on the UNEP that we listened this morning. This was not online, but
who works in the same office of Charlotte this morning from UNEP, the UN Environmental Program. I'll give you the.
Just speak very close.
Sure. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. So I'm going to speak in English in my speech. And hello, everyone, and good afternoon, everyone. It's a great pleasure to join this session this afternoon. And I'll try my best to speak in a very natural speed because usually I speak very fast. And Today, I would like to share my reflections in 3 parts, and all of these reflections are centering around my work with my team, Faith for Earth Coalition, which is based in United Nations Environment Program, based in Nairobi, and I'm currently working here. So during my work, I have many great opportunity to work with so many wonderful young people around the world. And my speech will be divided into 3 parts. The first one is sharing as a cultural and relational practices. And the number 2 is sustainability as a behavioral and moral pathway. And the number 3 is about co-responsibility through youth-led peace building. So first one, sharing as a cultural and relational practice. When we are talking about sharing, it's not only about exchanging resources or materials. Sharing is a cultural act, is how we build trust, belongings, and build like moral connections across differences. And this idea really shapes my work when it comes to my role as the focal point between my team, UNEP Faith for Earth Coalition, with the Youth Council. And our Youth Council members, they represent a wide spectrum of traditions like Christianity, Jainism, Buddhism, and Islam, and many other denominations. So despite theological differences, we share a deep conviction that caring for Earth is both a spiritual duty and a way of moral act. So in our meetings, because we have weekly meeting and a monthly meeting and different projects and different events, webinars happening there. So in our meetings, sharing is presented in many form of ways. For example, we will learning teachings based in their theological scripture or reflect together on values like compassion, moderation, stewardship, or we each other will express how we express care in different cultural backgrounds. So these ideas, or perspectives, we say, they enrich one another. And this is how we turn differences or diversity into dialogue instead of division. So when we view sharing as relational rather than transactional, we begin to realize that sustainability is not only based on technology or policy, it's also very closely or rooted in our cultural relationships. So when youth people or young people or youth groups lead these initiatives, it just make us more and more realize this point. And young people, we create these spaces and we create these platforms to make our cooperation possible and make it continue and go further, even though sometimes our formal system falter. And number 2 is about the sustainability as a behavioral and moral pathway. If we say that sharing builds connection, then sustainability gives this connection a purpose, or it challenges us to turn shared values into environmental actions, to solid, to real actions. And in this session, the examples I would like to make is a publication that's written by my team, which is called the Faith for Earth, which is called the Sustainability Lifestyle Roadmap. Sustainable Lifestyle Roadmap, if I didn't remember wrong. Okay, so this is a publication that's written and co-edited by my team, and I also helped to co-edit it before publishing. So in this publication, we provide a sort of behavioral insights for governments, businesses, communities, individuals to support a low carbon lifestyle, like encouraging mindful consumption or reducing waste or recycle use of materials. And what made me really impressed is that how faith-based networks, they localize their ideas. For example, during our interfaith dialogue, we will integrate sustainability into religious rituals or celebrations. Like our young group, they will promote sustainable fashion in their celebrations, in their traditions, or organize community cleanups as a way of showing service or gratitude. So based on all this evidence-based examples, we will more and more understand and know that sustainability is also a sort of a cultural or moral way of act. It's not only an external agenda from an institution. It's really close to our own daily life. When youth face leaders or youth groups, they led these initiatives. It makes us understand that it is really close to our own daily life. It's how we live, how we celebrate, how we work, how we understand, and how we express it. It's about how we define it. I mean, sustainability, perhaps sometimes we don't know this technical word, but we just put our individual efforts into our daily life. It's about reimagining the moral fabric of our daily life. Sorry. Slow down. Oh, sorry. Yes. Yeah, because usually I speak so fast. Okay, thank you so much. I'll try my best to slow down. Thank you so much. Thank you. And so this is the second part I would like to share. And in the third session, and last but not least, it's about the co-responsibility through youth-led peace building. So during my work, I have many great opportunities to work with different young people, especially the regional faith leaders, and many of them really embody the co-responsibility into their daily life, and they will bridge difference together and turn values into actions. So this idea really came to life in one of the projects held by my team, and I also helped to coordinate, which is called the language of our generational challenge. So it's a sort of interactive map, and it's already published online, and we're using a technology tool which is called the ArcGIS. So in this website, you can click it and you can see the name, the gender, the region, and the beliefs and the stories between this person's individual beliefs and their environmental actions, and how it is reciprocally influence each other. So I would like to just make some very simple examples here. For example, one of stories submitted to us is a Christian youth from East Africa, and he will really closely related the keyword stewardship with sort of the caring for all the creations from God's calling. So these are the keywords they're using. And a Muslim youth, for example, they will use the phrase like amana, which I believe is a meaning close to the word trust and responsibility. And they will connect it with how teaching children to plant trees itself can be a way of showing gratitude. And a Buddhist youth from South Asia while saying the word stewardship and mindfulness, and how urban planning can be connected with the sacred balance of life. And a very young environmentalist from South America, they emphasize the phrase like the spiritual resilience, and how this spiritual resilience is rooted in their ancestral wisdom, and how it also helped to promote their community solidarity in the face of ecological uncertainty. So all these stories came to one truth, or came to similar truths, that faith and care are inseparable. So ecological responsibility, we can say it, really grows out of empathy, connection, stewardship, compassion, and these values are shared with many of us. So to conclude, I would like to say that caring, no matter we say caring or peace or sustainability, they're not separate goals. They're shared goals or co-responsibility that based on faith, hope, and the future, and the young people, and many other keywords. And I believe they are the different expressions of the same human capacity, which is to care and to share. So based on my work and my research, I've witnessed so many young people, how they embody this creativity into their daily life, like bridging faith together and create spaces where dialogue sustaining and bring values into action. So if we would love to continue the peace and the sustainability on the earth, and if we want to keep it going further and going longer, I believe that we must sustain or create spaces for these spaces of relationship where youth, faith, cultural meet together to imagine what living on Earth responsibly can mean. So these are my reflections. Sorry, I speak so fast. So thank you so much. Thank you.
So thanks a lot, Shufei, for showing how transformation can be obtained by values that are rooted in ancestral traditions and religions. So now we are going to our last speaker, who comes from Kenya, Ambrose Kilonzo. So he is psychologist for training, and he is from the African Council of Religious Leaders.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Ambrose Kilonzo. I come from the African Council of Religious Leaders. I head as the co-chair the Africa Interfaith Youth Network, which brings together all the young people across the different religions, Christians, Muslims, Hindus, Baha'is, across the whole African continent. I come from Kenya. Welcome, karibuni sana. And this is a country which our beauty is matched with a lot of complexities. We have young energy, which meets social fragility, and where the call to exist peacefully is we address it from two angles, from both a moral and a practical angle. Today, I hope to share a reflection that connects the idea of sharing, sustainability, and co-responsibility to what I have witnessed and experienced in the field, particularly through youth engagement, interreligious cooperation, and community-based peace initiatives. Our theme today invites us to think beyond policies and projects. It asks us to confront a deeper ethical question. Our theme today asks us the question, how shall we live together in a way that sustains life, not only for ourselves, but for others and for the generations to come? There's a philosopher I really like, Emmanuel Levinas, who once said that responsibility begins in the face of the other, when we recognize the humanity of someone beyond of ourselves. That is an insight that I believe is the starting point of sustainability and sociality. Yet in our modern cities that we live in today, we often live side by side, but in actual sense, we don't live with one another. Technology has connected us virtually, but it has fragmented us emotionally. Sustainability, therefore, is not just an environmental concern. It is about restoring our relational fabric, learning again the art of belonging, of shared life, and of mutual care for one another. In Kenya, I have learned that peace and sustainability are not abstract ideals. They are choices that we make in our day-to-day lives. As an individual who works closely with the Interreligious Council of Kenya, I have seen how faith leaders and youth can become bridges where divisions once stood. We have had different initiatives. We have had community dialogues in places where conflict has been prevalent. And in these instances, I have seen young people consistently reminding us that peace begins when people are invited to participate, not just to be assisted. And through several other different initiatives, such as interfaith forums, social intelligence reporting in conjunction with the government parastatals, and anti-corruption advocacy in different public sectors, I have seen that sustainability requires more than resources. What my sister from China has just mentioned here, that it requires trust. When citizens trust their institutions and each other, shared responsibility becomes possible. Kenyan youth, who make up the majority of the population, are showing that co-responsibility is not a slogan. It is lived out in small acts. When a young person uses their digital platform to counter misinformation, when communities come together to mobilize and to protect public facilities, or when interfaith volunteers rebuild markets or places of worship after violence. These actions are local, but their moral significance is global. They remind us that the sustainability of any society rests not only on economic growth, but on the moral architecture of care. I would like to look at patterns of sharing from different academic angles. Social scientists, whom I'm happy to be here with, they have long observed that societies thrive when they cultivate what we might call patterns of sharing. These are what my sister said, networks of reciprocity and empathy that make cooperation possible. Anthropologically, sharing has always been a survival strategy. But in this century that we live in, it must evolve into a civilization strategy where we need to rethink how we share resources, information, and power. In governance, sharing means participatory models where citizens have a voice. In ecology, it means sustainable consumption that respects the planet's limits. In social life, it means inclusion, the deliberate effort to make space for those at the margins. True sustainability, therefore, is not only environmental, but relational and moral. It also asks us a question. Are our systems designed to include or to exclude? Are these systems designed to accumulate or to distribute? Globally, we are at crossroads. The crisis we face, different crises in climate change, inequality, violent extremism, they are not separate problems. They are symptoms of a shared failure to act together. Co-responsibility is the only antidote to all these crises. It reminds us that our well-being is bound up with each other. My well-being is bound up with your well-being. The pandemic in 2020 of the COVID-19 made this truth impossible to ignore. And as we continue to live, environmental disasters continue to underline this truth. Our generation, therefore especially the young people, cannot afford to be indifferent. We are called to embody what Pope Francis called a culture of encounter, where dialogue replaces suspicion, and where peace is not just the absence of war, but the presence of justice. Allow me to conclude with a personal conviction. I believe that peace and sustainability begin with the courage to care. In my work with the young people, I have seen how hope multiplies when it is shared. When we gather across religions, cultures, and continents, something sacred happens. We rediscover that humanity is still capable of compassion. The task before us, then, is not to invent a new world, but to reweave the human one, a world where our cities become communities, our communities become families, and our families become school of peace. Let us be bold enough to care, generous enough to share, and humble enough to take co-responsibility for the future we all desire. Thank you.
Then thanks a lot for highlighting also the concept of participation and of co-responsibility. I think it's very important. So now we will take some questions. We will have 10 minutes for questions that can be either from here or from online. So here we have a microphone. You have to speak in the microphone, because otherwise the translator will not hear your questions. And start by saying the language.
Je vais parler en français. Je suis Ouattara Tenemafine de la Côte d'Ivoire. Ma question s'adresse à la première intervenante.
Thank you so much. Mr. Boris.
OK. Au regard de tout ce qui existe déjà, comment pouvons-nous réinventer nos villes actuelles en mettant l'accent sur nos cultures et la durabilité? Ensuite, la deuxième question, comment les dynamiques sociales peuvent transformer nos villes actuelles et quelle sera la contribution des jeunes? Merci.
Agnès Marie.
Oui, merci pour ta question, très stimulante. J'ai commencé mon propos en disant que l'observation de nos villes, de ce qui se vit dans nos villes, nous permet de dire qu'il y a la solidarité en œuvre dans les villes, malgré ce qu'on peut peut-être voir lorsqu'on on parle des défis, lorsqu'on parle des dysfonctionnements de la ville. Mais il y a une solidarité qui tisse le tissu social. Parce que n'eût été cette solidarité qui fonctionne vraiment comme une assurance, je pense que
We see
serait encore plus
that
difficile.
solidarity is like an insurance.
Regardons un peu la vie
Life
associative,
is not
les
easy.
associations qui existent dans nos villes. Ce
If
sont
we
des
look at
véritables lieux
the associations that people get together, there are spaces of learning, of sociality. People are linked solidarity. This allows people
les difficultés et les défis. Et les défis
to be able to face the difficulties and the challenges that they face every day. The youth and families need to face.
cette solidarité existe.
So therefore,
Il faudrait la
this
mettre
solidarity
en
exists,
lumière, la
and we
solidifier,
need
la
to,
réaliser.
we had to put it into life. We had to consolidate
Ça
it,
ne devienne
to update
des
it,
lieux
to
de vie
underline,
sociale, identitaire ou communautaire.
to
C'est pour ça que
avoid
j'ai proposé,
that
nous
these places
proposons que
become
cette solidarité puisse s'ouvrir à travers l'amour
spaces
de soi, que ça puisse avoir cette
anti-identity.
caractéristique-là de
We,
surabondance, de soin
through
de
our
l'autre,
this
de
universe,
reconnaissance de l'autre,
this
et puis
universal love,
d'universalisme,
this
ce
universal
qui permet
social love
de
that
prendre
has
en
these
compte les
particular
besoins et les
characteristics for
nécessités des uns et des
universality,
autres.
to care
Alors,
for
en
the others,
rejoignant
to
nos
take
petits
into account
tissus
of the needs
sociaux
of one
qui
another.
nous
We need to take
entourent,
into
on
consideration
pourrait
all of
créer
these
une
to build
mentalité de soins
these
comme il a dit,
structures.
une mentalité
So
de
it
prendre
allows
soin
us
de
to
l'autre, qui
build a
pourrait nous
mentality
permettre au moment de
of
prendre les
care,
décisions de
to
tenir
care
compte
for the
des
other,
différents
to
paramètres,
take
différentes
care of the other,
réalités qui existent dans notre
taking into
milieu.
account of all the other parameters and
Agnès Marie.
realities that are in our context.
Si vous pouvez penser à faire des questions brèves et des réponses
Thank
brèves,
you.
ça permet d'avoir
So,
plus de personnes qui posent
so
des
the
questions.
questions could be brief.
Je vais
That
parler
would,
en français.
so answer
C'est comme un
briefs,
patient de la
so we
RDC.
can have more people.
Ma préoccupation s'adresse à la sœur
I'm
Prisca,
from Congo. My
qui,
concern,
dans son exposé, a reproché
the
certaines de
sister
nos attitudes
Priska, in our
culturelles qui sembleraient bloquer
contribution,
le développement
you
durable.
denounce some of our cultural
Mais en Afrique, nous avons eu à
attributions.
importer beaucoup
But in Africa,
de la culture
we
d'autres
see
peuples,
how
mais qui nous a amenés à des problèmes tels que, une fois une culture est déjà copiée, elle nous aide pas
we lead the culture of other peoples
à nos problèmes ou à résoudre nos problèmes. Je prends une illustration.
who do not respond to our
C'est un programme qui nous a
problems.
été imposé par les colons, comme vous l'avez
The
dit.
program
Et ces programmes
or
ne résolvent pas tellement nos problèmes
education
parce
that
que vous
we have
finissez
in
les études,
Africa
vous ne
has
savez
been
pas quoi faire
imposed
concrètement.
by
Ma question est celle de
the
savoir dans quelle
colonial
mesure
powers. So when you finish the studies, you don't know what to do
appuyer
completely,
le
for
développement
instance.
durable. Merci.
In which way culture, African culture, can contribute to sustainable development.
La culture
Thank you.
traditionnelle
I
de mon
didn't
peuple.
denounce
Je dénonce
the
simplement
traditional
l'appellation de
African
la
culture. I
ville,
denounced
synonyme de la ville du colon. Et du moment
there is a
que j'appelle la
decadence in
ville
the
comme un
cities, like the
village du
symbol
colonisateur,
of the
je reste
situation
bloqué Pour moi, tout ce
like
qui est
the colonizing village.
quand je prends l'exemple de mon cas, je quitte mon
So
village.
is this a model that we want to follow or not?
Et c'est un village. Quand j'arrive à Abidjan, comme dans
See,
ma
if I go to
conception,
Abidjan, it's a
c'est la vie
city.
du colonisateur, je ne participe à rien. Donc, je vais aller participer
This
à la
is the city of the colonizers. I don't see any participation.
développer mon village.
If I want to participate in the building of my village, it's easier for me if I go to a village, not to a city.
Où je change cette
So,
appellation.
not to go to Abidjan, that's the city of the colonizer.
Je dis qu'il faut articuler les deux systèmes.
We have to put together two systems. We cannot throw away everything that we receive. We need to understand the positive.
Merci.
We need to understand the positive.
Now we'll take a question from Zoom. The question is for Chufei from Cameroon. So within the African context, what models can be used to concretely achieve responsible and sustainable sharing of resources in a context where most leaders at various levels are selfish and highly corrupt?
Okay, thank you. Okay, let me read this question again and then I'll answer it. Within the African context, what models can be used to concretely achieve responsible and sustainable sharing of resources in a context where most leaders are selfish and highly corrupt? Well, I think I need to answer these questions really based on my work and my team's outcome. And I would like to say that I will start with the youth perspective because no matter I myself or as a no matter I myself as a sort of a international worker here, and no matter my team Faithful Earth Coalition, and we would like to share a very concrete outcome of my team, which is called as I just said, the language of our generational challenge. This is the one of the most concrete examples we would like to share to each other, and we would like to promote it because it's a totally like you don't need to pay anything. Then you can read the stories. Then you can understand how people's own faith and their environmental actions can be connected, and their faith and their cultural and their background and their own, for example, their ancestral wisdom can be the most or the best model for their own life. And in this outcome, I would like to say that stories has its own power. It has its own narrative power. So when you read these stories, when we are collecting these stories and you are writing the stories, I believe itself can be a super powerful influence to no matter you yourself or your team or your communities to achieve a more sustainable future. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Chufei. So now, unfortunately, we need to have our last question. So it is for Ambrose. I will ask, it comes from Burundi. He already saw the question. Vous venez de dire qu'il faut prendre la responsabilité pour notre futur. Et c'est bien vrai.
What type of responsibility, cultural responsibility, could block our sustainable development?
Thank you. We are living in a time of a time that is very different. We have diversified models of learning. The first and most basic model which we can take responsibility, before we engage in co-responsibility, you have to be very firm in self-responsibility. And self-responsibility, we come together towards a shared purpose. The shared purpose right now is towards a sustainable and safe environment. So if we are to come together as young people to take part in proper civic democratic processes, let's say the election process, the voting process, for instance, that one safeguards our future as young people when we outline our needs, the needs of the society, what the society actually needs and not what the society wants. in one shared voice. That makes it very easy for the young people to come towards that shared purpose to safeguard their future. That is just one model where you can come together in co-responsibility in a quest to safeguard your future.
Thanks a lot, Ambrose. Unfortunately, we need to conclude now because there is another session after this one. So I think this panel really illustrated that the link between the traditional knowledge on urban innovation can fuel new approaches to urban regeneration that is based on resident participation, on cultural heritage promotion, on the joint construction of more resilient or more human territories. So thanks a lot to all participants.
Merci beaucoup, Catherine, et merci à tous les panélistes. On va faire un petit moment d'échange culturel. Est-ce que je peux vous demander de vous lever, s'il vous plaît?
Thank you for this moment of cultural exchange. Now I ask you to stand up
Utilisez votre espace, bougez,
and to
circuler le sang.
to use the spaces. You can get your blood going around.
De bouger un peu. Est-ce que
It's time to have a drink of water.
pour pouvoir passer à la
To move a little bit, we need to wake up
Donc, si vous êtes prêts
to
maintenant,
pass the last
merci
part
beaucoup.
of this session.
Et je vais vous
Now you
partager
can
le
sit down again.
Vous pouvez prendre place, merci. On va
I will tell you, I will share with you now
partager une manière dont comment à Madagascar,
a way in which in Madagascar,
on faisait.
in the Royal Palace,
Translation is okay, right?
you could do to animate
Pour animer les fêtes.
how in Madagascar, how you could animate the parties of the kingdom.
Il y a un animateur qui
It's like that. It's like this.
On est ensemble? Je dis la
A namaku
Mirena,
is
tu peux
a
venir s'il te plaît nous
namaku.
aider. Je vais donner le temps et elle va
Come
vous
and
montrer
help
comment on
us.
fait.
Namaku.
Tu peux monter. Applaudissements. Mirena,
She will show you how to do it. So an applause.
Il y a un animateur, l'animateur donc pour les grandes cérémonies au royaume. Donc l'animateur dit
So there's this animator for the great ceremonies, and the animator says, Lamaku,
Averez-nous.
Lamaku,
Atambage.
Atabayo,
Donc le
Atambas,
lamaku c'est lamaku. 1, 2, 3,
Lamaku.
4 lamaku.
1, 2, 3.
Averez-nous.
Lamaku, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9,
Atambage.
10, 1,
Atambage.
1.
C'est applaudissements.
You applaud, you clap,
Applaudissements
you
4
clap,
fois. Et après, applaudissements 8
you
fois.
clap 4 times,
On met tous ensemble nos applaudissements. C'était les manières
and then
de
8 times, and you put all the applauses together. It's a way to thank
pour accueillir
those who have did a performance on stage, to welcome
animation sur scène.
during celebrations.
On va essayer.
Those great animations. Can we start? I didn't understand anything, but we'll just follow. Lamaku, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Averez-nous.
Move them 3, 4, 1, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Atambal.
1.
Merci beaucoup. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you. Oh, that was quick.
On a fait un petit voyage
Thank you,
à
thank you.
Madagascar, le temps d'un moment. Salutations
Now,
à tous ceux qui nous suivent d'ailleurs. De
So we made a trip to Madagascar.
Donc,
We thank everyone who has been following us also from Madagascar. So this is the last part of our day.
assez important
It's
que nous avons commencé
a very important program now.
2025. Donc,
That
au sein de
we
Together for New Africa,
started in June
on a lancé
of last year.
une compétition
Together
saine,
for
une
New Africa, we
compétition
launched
entre nous, un appel
an
à
internal
idées.
game, an internal competition.
L'appel à idées consistait à présenter des idées pour une paix durable en Afrique,
It was to present ideas for sustainable peace in Africa. So our contribution during the summer school, Melchior explained to us there were roundtables, experts, some people that suggested projects. Maybe you remember that.
Expliqué les critères de sélection. Donc nous sommes aujourd'hui arrivés au moment
From some project, he explained the criteria for choosing the choices that were made. So the projects that won is what we are gonna the internal competition. It's not that the others lost, but there's some projects that they have been recognized, like the first one. So I called first
de l'équipe
the coordinator of our team regarding the content of formation for Together for a New Africa. With him, we have Caterina Hinojosa from New Humanity and Professor Declan
A round of applause.
l'université, Institut universitaire Sophia.
of the Institute Sophia. So we start with Castor, Ugale. We thank everyone. Excuse, there's a problem somewhere. It's not going well.
Good evening, everyone. I wrote something for the sake of translators. My name is Castor. I'm a Tanzanian. I'm living in Tanzania. And I'm here because I make part of the team which is working for the project Together for New Africa. Yes, as you have seen in the program, that this moment we are having a ceremony for call for ideas, project for environmental and social transformation of Together for a New Africa. It is a profound joy for me now to welcome you all to this award, to join us for this award of the International Call for Ideas. Tonight, we gather to celebrate what becomes possible when vision, collaboration, and the commitment of young people unite in service of the better continent. Over the course of Together for New Africa 2, we were confronted with a simple truth that peace in Africa cannot be built by speeches, declarations, or goodwill alone. It must be cultivated through tangible, community-driven actions, especially by young people who encounter the realities of our continent day to day. During our training sessions and the community engagements, participants identified the major obstacles to peace: poverty, environmental degradation, unemployment, weak governance, social exclusion, and others. However, they were empowered to confront them not as static problems, rather as conditioning factors whose solutions need creativity, networking, and responsible leadership. It is in this spirit that we launched the International Call for Ideas. Our goal was clear: to offer young Africans a platform where their insights, innovations, and lived experiences could be translated into concrete, actionable solutions for their cities and communities. This call for ideas was open to all T4NA participants across the 14 countries in Africa. There was no restrictions on the number of submissions per country. However, to maintain fairness, only one project from each country could be selected. By the end of submissions, we received 28 proposals, a clear indications of the enthusiasm, dedication, and intellectual strength present among our youth. To guarantee fairness and objective judgment, we established an anonymous evaluation committee composed of experts from multiple fields. Each proposal was assessed independently using transparency criteria of relevance to peace and community transformation, feasibility and clarity of implementation, innovation and creativity, sustainability of impact, and coherence of action plan. From this rigorous process, 6 outstanding projects were selected. Their recognition tonight does not diminish the quality of the remaining proposals. The limitation was purely numerical. In fact, the evaluators consistently highlighted the depth, seriousness, and originality of evident projects across many submitted proposals, a strong testimony to the maturity of the Tifona movement. This entire process was confirmed and is telling us 3 important truths. First, young Africans are ready to lead. They are not passively waiting for change. They are actively designing it. Second, youth-led peace building is realistic, practical, and impactful. The submitted project proposals were innovative solutions in agriculture, education, governance, environment, and community cohesion. Third, Together for New Africa has grown in strength and purpose. Over the past 3 years, through training, shared experience, and collaboration, this movement has evolved into a community of action, producing initiatives that will leave lasting mark in our societies. At this moment, allow me to appreciate those who have been working with us through this end. Sophia University, that was there since the nations of this initiative. I remember Professor Declan, who was with us when we were dreaming about Together for New Africa. He was trying to translate the dream, and he's today with us. New Humanity. New Humanity that has been incubating us since its nations with insights, actions, countable things which have made us what we are today. All local and international partners, universities, civil societies, faith-based institutions, to mention but few, all of you, you have been accompanying us, and as the outcome, we are witnessing now impactful actions across 14 African countries. To all participants who are following us, who are here, and those who are not with us here, both those actions which are done locally and internationally are not meaningless. Please remember that this ceremony is not a conclusion. It marks a new beginning. As Merkel has been reminding us repeatedly, that Together for New Africa is in your hands. He repeated it now and then. Together, over the last 3 years, we've cultivated knowledge, unity, and shared sense of purpose. Now, it is your turn to extend this spirit into your community and transform them into actions. As we, as a coordination team, we reaffirm our commitment to you, supporting your ideas, strengthening strategies, partnership, and upholding a shared value of unity, transparency, voluntarism, and co-governance. Let us continue to build communities where peace is not merely spoken, but is actively lived through care, innovation, and collaboration that uplift our cities and transform our communities. As we recognize these 6 selected projects, let us reaffirm this conviction that for peace to endure in Africa, solutions must be local, collaborative, and led by the young people who form the majority of our population and bear the greatest weight of our continent's vulnerability. Together, we will continue writing a new African story, a story of responsibility, creativity, and hope. Thank you. Now allow me to introduce to you, I mentioned Professor Declan Oberme. Professor, he's the rector of Sophia University, but he's here in a special way because he's a co-founder of Together for New Africa, as I mentioned earlier on. When we were dreaming, he was with us. He has been incubating us all through these 10 years of the trainings and the local activities, and today he's here. Professor Declan, I give you mic.
So thank you. There are many collaborators. Even in Sofia, we should also applaud Daniela in particular, who spent many hours, even more than me. Give her applause, yeah. Also, we had Letizia de Torre, who spent many hours with us. Many people. What I thought of saying is related to how this project worked. So it was born at Sofia. Sofia was the place. I don't know if I can be a co-founder, because really the students made a suggestion. They elaborated an idea. They wrote a document. They thought, how are we going to make this happen? So they wrote the letter to Piero Coda, who was the rector at the time, who authorized some of us to become involved. Then, with us, they calculated some other steps. Let's, as you said, work with the political movement for unity, New Humanity, and so on. The idea was the collaborations were built together, and gradually a network was born, which moved beyond Sofia, beyond Italy, rooted itself here. You have the local coordination, you have in each nation the tutors. I think it's a good example of how what the students were studying and the type of formation they were getting in Sofia became concrete reality. They were studying philosophy and theology and economics and political studies, and even, I don't know if they had courses in mathematics or logic. And yet they thought, this formation gives us a new understanding of the future of Africa. So they moved from a new vision, a new understanding, towards practical action, towards building collaborations, towards what can we do? And in my interpretation, it's what I want to say, this prize-giving ceremony means that has happened also in Together for New Africa. We didn't spend a lot of time developing projects here in these summer schools. Sometimes we were talking about great, ideas and wisdom and these things. It wasn't a very technical formation. There was technical formation, but it was more how to view the world, how to view the future, how to view ourselves and the future. So I think we're giving a prize to the project as well, because it produces very concrete projects. All of these projects were developed by people who successfully completed this formation. So I'm talking about Sofia gave a type of formation, it became practical, Together for New Africa. Together for New Africa did the same, and it produces these projects. And that's something to celebrate. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor. Thank you, Professor Declan. In fact, yes, at Sophia, we always absorbed wisdom, and that was a call, and we see now it's inspiring us. And all these days, you have been telling us how to live with wisdom, no? Wisdom infusions action, and these are the outcomes. Now, as you have been saying here, no, always young people have dreams. But if you have someone to translate the dream, then that dream becomes a reality. So Sophia makes part of that. And as I mentioned before, among those who have been translating the dream are the New Humanity. And we are very glad to be here with the Vice President of the New Humanity. Catalina, what do you want to say?
Thank you so much, Castor. And thank you, everyone, for being here. We have to celebrate this. You know, this is a ceremony, so let's make an applause, a big applause. We are really honored as New Humanity and delighted to know that 6 projects have been supported and has been selected. It doesn't mean that the other projects doesn't matter. Your projects matter a lot. And probably for now, these are working, but the other projects can also find other ways also to find support, to find how is the way that they can reach also to not only the national government, but probably also the international arena or the regional process. So we are really delighted about that. What I wanted to say is also that in your projects, for sure, you have shared your vision, your commitment, and especially you have done practical solutions connected also to the wounds of your society, connected to the wounds that you have found in your local territories to give an answer to those issues. And it's really important because you are trying to understand that the change becomes also from the bottom up. But we are trying also as New Humanities to support you from the top down. It means that we are trying also to share the experience of Together for a New Humanity, Together for a New Africa, also at the international level. And that's why also UNESCO has been a special supported also of the project of Together for a New Africa. So we want to thank also UNESCO, that it's a United Nations agency, that they have also working together because we believe in what young people are doing. We believe that you are the change. So let's do it together and let me try to say this word again. Pamoja tuaweza. Asante sana.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Now we've been mentioning projects. And we don't want to leave this being theoretical. I want you now to witness these people who have been developing this action for their communities. I'll call those who are here with us to come close, and you'll come and greet the participants, and we are going to be awarded. First award will come from Sophia, from us, by Professor Declan, but second award is from the community of New Humanity. So I call you all to come along, and I'll be calling you by countries. Angola, Benin, Democratic Republic of Congo, Kenya, Nigeria, and Uganda. Please let's stand up, and one by one will come here, say a word, receive an award, and shake a hand with the Vice President of New Humanity as a recognition. Please come. We start with Angola, represented by Albino Rosario.
I don't have any word to give them.
Well, your certificate is coming. Certificate is coming. So please stand maybe here after they say this. Yes.
No.
Yes. Say something.
Okay.
2 minutes.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Albino Manuel do Rosario. I'm from Angola. I'm here for sharing our project, which title it is Empowering Young People. In Angola, data shows 60% of young people in Wambo province is struggling to access an employment opportunity. These situations increase significant vulnerability such as theft, robbery, bad sexual activity, and abuse. This project aims to initiate income generating activities, training youth in petty business management, also to give you psychosocial support and reduction of violence. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Be close here. Be close here. The second one, Benin.
Bonjour à tous et à tous, du moins bonsoir. Je suis Hervé, je viens du Bénin et je vais vous
Good
présenter
evening to
mon
everyone.
projet, c'est Jeunes leaders pour la paix au Bénin. Alors, dans un contexte où la violence
I
scolaire et
present
la
our
différence
project in
physique
Benin
gagnent du terrain,
in
le
our
projet
the
Jeunes leaders pour la
context
paix au
or
Bénin ne demande
school
pas simplement
violence
qu'à
is
être
and
financé,
indifference
il
is very
s'impose comme
strong.
une nécessité
The
absolue car il
project
prépare aujourd'hui les
is
artisans de
an
paix de
absolute
demain.
necessity
Ok, d'accord. Imaginons tous
because
ici
it
un Bénin
prepares the
où
operators of
chaque
peace, agents of
citoyen ou
peace of
chaque
the
jeune est
future
engagé,
in
conscient
Benin.
et
Each
capable de
city, each
prévenir les
citizen,
conflits
each
avant
youth
même qu'ils ne naissent. C'est
is
ce Bénin
aware
dont parle notre
and
projet.
is
Nous allons
able
d'abord vous
to
attaquer
prevent
à la
conflicts
racine
before
de la
they reach
violence.
to that level.
Après, dans un second temps, nous allons créer des
So we
cadres
want to
durables de
attack the
leadership.
roots of violence,
Le projet offrira un cadre
to
d'expression
create
inclusif
leaders,
où chaque jeune pourra
sustainable
s'adapter,
leadership,
apprendre, accepter
inclusive,
l'autre, écouter
that
l'autre et
each young
ensemble
person
avancer. Nous
can
allons ensuite
adapt
réformer les
and learn
pratiques
how to
des valeurs
listen to
civiques.
the other and go ahead,
Parce que si l'éducation
and to
nationale manque
also learn
d'enseigner
the
les valeurs
practices of the
sociales,
sacred
il manque une
values.
mise en
Because if the
pratique
national
réelle et
education wants
continue.
to teach the
Enfin,
universal values, has
soutenir
to be
le
something
projet Jeunes leaders pour la paix au
continuing
Bénin,
and
c'est
practical.
investir dans une
So, and
nouvelle
also
génération
sustain the
capable de
prayers
bâtir
of
un
youth
Bénin de
for
paix, un
peace,
Bénin nouveau.
to give the
Alors,
tools to
merci à
new
tous, je vous
generations,
remercie.
give them then the tools to be a guarantee for the future.
For some reasons,
Thank
the
you.
representative of Congo is not here represented, so
So
we'll go
the
to
representative
Kenya,
from
represented
DRC
by
is not here,
Caroline.
from Congo. So I call
come
Kenya
along.
now.
I'll go down, yes.
Kenya is represented by, I missed the name of the young lady here.
My name is Karen Kendi Kiremi from the Rakanithi County, eastern part of Kenya. I am here to present our project together with Thrive Community Projects. Like many young people in my community, I grew up believing that education would open every door. I worked and had my diploma in human resource, became a Cisco certified, and waited for doors to open, but it didn't. Finding a job was hard, and I realized my story was a story of many others around me, talented and educated, but with very few opportunities. Then one day during Together for a New Africa Summer School, I visited Father Joseph Hade's garden. I saw something that changed me. Persons with disability actively engaging in smart farming, producing food, earning income, and living with dignity. At that moment, I thought about my fellow youth and persons with disability back at home, full of talent, full of potential, yet so often excluded from opportunities. That's how Together with Thrive Community Project was born. Our vision is to establish a community resource skill training center that empowers at least 100 persons, 100 people directly, persons with disability, vulnerable youth, and families, and reach at least 500 others through mentorship and peace building activities in Mozambique and Mwembe. And To ensure sustainability, we will also facilitate market linkage to participants so that they can sell products and create lasting economic opportunities. This project is more than skills or training. It is about empowerment, inclusion, and hope. With total budget of approximately, together with Thrive can transform unemployment into opportunities, exclusion into inclusion, and despair into dignity. When youth, PWDs, families, and community leaders come together, we don't just survive, we thrive together in communities and cities to care. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. Thank you, Caroline. BP, please, be here, please. Thank you, Caroline. Thank you so much. And the next is Nigeria, represented by Abbas Muhammad.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Abbas from Nigeria. Okay. Okay, like that. Okay, my name is Abbas from Nigeria. The project is titled Eco Peace Youth Corps, Reclaiming Land, Restoring Lives. This project aims to empower youth, that is younger generation, to reclaim the environment and build peace through practical eco actions in their community. So what problems do we face? It involves gully erosion, which is destroying farmlands, roads, and so on. Plastic waste, choking water and polluting communities. Youth unemployment, which is fueling frustration, migration and insecurity, and the likes. So what is our vision? What do we aim to achieve? We want to empower, we want to empower 500 young leaders through training, land recycling, and peace building. Reclaim 10 hectares of degraded land within 12 months. And then combat 500 kilograms of plastic waste and into building 10,000 eco blocks. 10,000, I repeat, 10,000 eco blocks through recycling drives and cleanups. So why this project matters and how do we achieve it? Through training of the young leaders, through action, as well as sustenance. How do we sustain? That is through eco businesses like nursery of planting trees that are supporting reclaiming land. So at the end of it, why this project matters? Eco Peace Youth Corps restore land, restore lives, and restore hopes. One small seed, one act of service, young Nigerians are planting peace at a time at each community. Thank you.
Thank you, Abbas. Thank you so much. Yes, please shake hand with Katarina. Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Abbas. And the last but one is Uganda, represented by Charles Ola.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Charles Ola from Uganda. Our project title is Strengthening Community Safety Through Neighborhood Watch. The objective of the project is creating peaceful coexistence among the local community in the neighboring sub-county in Uganda. This project will bring out an enhancement in community safety by establishing and supporting neighborhood watch group that foster collaboration between residents, local leaders, and law enforcement to prevent crime, strengthen relationship between the local and the security, empowering communities where residents will take collective responsibility for safety and promote vigilance. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles Ola. Thank you, Charles. Thank you, everyone. Thank you all. Thank you all who are here and those who are following us. Please, those projects which are in your countries, go on, implement them. And this is a starting point, and may God bless this initiative. Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone. Take this.
Once again, thank you very much Together for New Africa for this wonderful celebration that you have shown here, because sometimes we need to celebrate, you know. We participate, we contribute, but at the end of the day, we need to enjoy the fruits of what we have done. So, what can I say? I don't know. Now we are at the end of our last. Is it the last session? No, tomorrow there is another surprise. So, but we thank the panels, the panels. Everyone has the wise idea. It was very amazing, and then the good practices. Everything. We've been trying to embrace all aspects of life of a human being. So we enjoyed today. Now, so tomorrow marks our final day together. We are sorry for that. Yet our shared journey is not finished. That's true. We will shift our focus to taking action for peace. A theme that calls each of us to move from ideas to practice, like this good example from Together for New Africa. Roundtables, interdisciplinary discussions, and collaborative activities await us. This moment are designed to help us turn collective insight into concrete steps that strengthen peace in our communities. Thank you for the focus with commitment you continue to bring. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow as we take the next step in this work together.